3, 2, 1, 0.
From south of the Rockies, deep in the hearts of the jungles of Yucatan, this is Reality Decoded. I'm your host, RD. This is Midnight in the Jungle. So sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another episode brought to you from Shit Video Productions as we are about to explore the avenues of alternative possibilities, the realms of mysteries, and contemporary conspiracies. Stay tuned to Midnight in the Jungle. It may not be midnight where you are watching from, but it is midnight in the jungle. So welcome back, one and all, regardless if or not you are watching from north, south, west, east of the Rockies, or if or not you are in a different time zone altogether. I do appreciate the fact that you have taken your time out of your day and chosen to tune in once again to me, RD, here at Reality Decoded for another installment of Midnight in the Jungle. And as what is in store for you all tonight, you are gonna have to hold on just a little while longer, and you will have to hold out for the roll call. I will get round to saying hello to each and every one of you momentarily, but before I do that, let me please remind you of the one and only rule that we have here at Midnight in the Jungle and Reality Decoded is to be excellent to each other, and with the added suggestion that you might want to consider of not being an asshole. So sit back, folks. We are about to kick things off and commence the proceedings here at Midnight in the Jungle. So sit back, relax, enjoy, put on your thinking caps, stick around to the very, very end, folks, and I don't even think of tuning out and going elsewhere. Good to see you, good to see you, one and all. Forgive me there, guys, I was just trying to drag it out as long as possible, just so that you could fully appreciate that wonderful piece of music from Glenn, and I've already forgotten his name, but the track is Marauder, or also known as The Chase, and it was used in the movie Midnight Express, and of course was the soundtrack that accompanied the great late Art Bell and his late night radio show Midnight in the Desert, which this is a little tribute to. Some of you already know that, but good to see you, folks. I did promise I would give you a roll call, say hello to each and every one of you. So let's get round to that straight away. Hopefully you can hear me okay, guys. Give me a sound check and let me know I'm coming through loud and clear, though it isn't technically midnight in in the Jungle is just past 4:20 local time here in the state of Yucatan. It is just a metaphorical midnight and the title of the show. Still seeing if anybody's letting me know if they can hear me okay. Sometimes we just need to try harder from Joy. Okay, thank you for that, Carol. 5 out of 5 from Tranquil, 5 by 5 from Daryl. Thank you guys. There is your group participation. 18 folks watching, although one just stuck out. That is a very strange thing. But Daryl Calhoun, Tranquil Vortex, Joy, Truly Ho, Carol of course, Joe, Annie, who else have we got? Kim Blanchard, Kim again, Alan Williams, welcome to you. Rebecca is here. Marty Lauderdale is taking a shower. She's got a bit of a stinky cooch situation going on there. Needs to scrub her undercarriage, get herself squeaky clean for the weekend. Who else did I got? Kat, Spiritual Detective, if you are still watching, forgive me if I have forgotten any one of you. I am trying to go through and see if there was anybody I missed. Did I say hello? Kim, Alan, are you a first time offender? If or not, forgive me if I got that incorrect, but if you are a first timer, welcome. We certainly like newbies here, and hopefully you will become a regular offender tonight. Hi Airy Fairy, just popping in there to make it in before we decommence with the pleasantries, but good to see you folks. It does warm my heart to know that there are a few plucky souls out there willing to watch RD. So what do we have in store for you tonight as part of this Midnight in the Jungle extravaganza? Hold me a second, let me just relocate my camera, sorry. A little bit OCDs there. Well, we are going to be continuing on a little bit from the theme of the week that has been running for the duration of this week since last Sunday on the channel that is now known as Nobody Watches RD, and some of you may have caught the double drop uploads that I've been putting up there as live premieres, so some of you can join in, participate in the chat as we watch together live. And the theme of those uploads on Nobody Watches RD has been all about how it is delivering, specifically to me, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but how Twitter, or X exactly, is being used as a propaganda delivery tool. It is not social media, it is social manipulation. And if you have tuned into all of those videos, or some of those videos, you witnessed what I was experiencing sort of in real time as I was doing those screen recordings, content that Twitter was suggesting to me. And I haven't really done actual statistics, but roughly 7 out of 10 of the tweets that I was seeing were all vegan related. Now, I'm not a vegan, I have no intentions of being a vegan. These are things that I have mentioned throughout those Nobody Watches RD streams, and you know, the couple of purposes those videos did serve was, one, they sort of followed on a little bit from last week's Midnight in the Jungle when we looked at mathematics and how the narrative network works and all the sort of some of the players, and that was very much a tip of the iceberg on my part, introduction to exactly what memetics is. If you never knew what memetics was prior to that, hopefully your eyes have been opened, hopefully you have a little bit of a thirst for more knowledge, and lucky for you, I have a whole playlist with probably 30 or 40 hours worth of content on memetics. Is a very, very serious deal, guys. You need to realize that memetics is really what is controlling the world right now, and what is being used to control the narratives. And what we witnessed throughout the week on my No One Watches RD videos was just how rampant that vegan narrative is being distributed. I think we had a couple of more folks poke in their heads in through the door there. I think it's Vanderberg. Good to see you, buddy. But if you haven't watched, please go back and watch those No One Watches RD videos, and I just will give a little bit of an explanation, just sort of what is going on with this channel at the moment. Midnight in the Jungle, which you've tuned in and watching now, is going to be a live experience. You will get to see me live on camera and be able to interact, as opposed to No One Watches RD, which are pre-recorded, uploaded premiere events. Although they come with a live chat, they are not live per se in the actual fact. You know, I'm not presenting live, it's already pre-recorded. But you do get to join in with the chat. I hopefully will be there and we can talk about ourselves, and maybe the Midnight in the Jungle will be the sort of theme of the week. Now, I can't guarantee that I'm going to keep bringing daily drops over on No One Watches RD, and, you know, further explanation about those videos. They are as least time consuming as I possibly can. Some of you folks may know or may not even realize how much time and effort does go into shit video production. Certainly when I'm putting together 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours long streams, finding all the content to go into a 6-hour stream and then having to compile it all, edit it all, go through all of that fun stuff to sort of put it into the form of a presentation so that I can upload it, sometimes takes hours, days, weeks, months, even sometimes a year. And I say that because the presentation we are going to be seeing, or the pre-recorded presentation we are going to be seeing, is pre-recorded. It is content that has been previously streamed on my channel, but if you haven't seen it, it is new to you. But it does follow on a little bit of the vegan agenda. We'll let you know what that is in a minute. But the vegan agenda, in its purpose, is something that I did draw attention to about 4.5, maybe 5 years ago on my first channel, TSP TV, which was sort of a little learning experience for me. I was cutting my teeth as a YouTuber and experimenting with various contents inside, you know, what works, what doesn't work, live streams, uploads, yada yada, whoopie woo. But during my sort of days as TSP TV, I did used to do an awful lot of screen recordings, and I did have a series of videos sort of highlighting the rise of beta males, and in particular how these sort of beta males were also running in conjunction with the vegan agenda. And vegan agenda has been sort of surfacing and getting bigger and bigger each and every year, a little bit sort of like how gay pride first sort of started out, you know, in its sort of infancy. Yeah, people turned up, but it wasn't sort of the month-long event that sort of stopped everything and flags flying from every steeple, so to speak. But, you know, the vegan agenda has been sort of active for some years now. It is, as it appears to me, is ramping up and becoming more prominent in newsfeed. And the purpose of this is, I believe, that we are in an age where the food supply is being eradicated. We are on limited time. Again, this is my opinion, you don't have to believe it. I'm not telling you, this is actual fact and is what's going to happen. From my observation, it looks to me as though agriculture is being targeted. Many stores and companies have been boycotted for various reasons over the last sort of couple of years. We're seeing sort of quite a few chains and sort of big box sort of corporations closing more and more, you know, their establishments. Walmart has been shutting down lots and lots of its sites across the United States. There's also supermarket chains in the United Kingdom and throughout Europe that are also closing their doors, shutting up. We've got farmers protesting throughout Europe, within the United Kingdom. We've got, you know, what's going on in Texas. Agriculture is being targeted and affected by these strange, bizarre fires. The price of basic food items are becoming increasingly high. There's people, you know, I'm seeing more and more people who are not in our full pool, who are not in our mindset, who are complaining, oh geez, I went to the grocery store today, I spent $100 and literally come away with toilet paper, a box of cereal, some milk and eggs. So products are becoming extremely expensive, particularly food, particularly fresh food items, and particularly meat. And more products from the likes of Beyond Meat, Impossible Meat, some of these plant-based Frankenfood factories that make plant-based substances look, smell and taste as much like meat as they possibly can. And our good friend Bill Gates is responsible for kickstarting the plant-based industry. He excuse me, I just had a very large lunch before I did stream, but back in around 2014, 2013, Bill Gates started scratching the surface and looking into plant-based dietary supplements, because that's what they are. We can't really call them food because most of it is made in plants, most of it is chemically created, and a lot of it is artificial colorings and flavorings to try and disguise plankton and bacteria and other sort of algae that are what they are calling the plants, that is constituted together, processed, added with all the stuff that makes it taste and look as much like meat as it really is. But this guy, Bill Gates, and a few of his other entrepreneur buddies, I believe Richard Branson also was involved, and I think maybe even Elon Musk, but these guys put a lot of dollars, they put their hands deep in their pockets and funded millions, if not billions of dollars to get this industry into the mainstream and to further fuel it and make these products more and more ready available. And any new item of any product, any item needs advertising. There's some products that don't need advertising, like Coca-Cola, Budweiser, Levi's. These are things that are always going to sell whether or not they run commercials on TV. But a brand new startup industry needs all the help it can get to get its attention out there, and this is where our good old friends at the Memetic War Division will create an awful lot of artificially intelligent bot armies that are armed with a particular narrative, and then they will distribute them far and wide throughout the far reaches of social media platforms to infiltrate chats, infiltrate news feeds, as we have seen, with that narrative to absorb into the minds. Now, it doesn't matter if you like the posts, if you interact with the posts, if you even share the posts will be seen because news feeds decide to be scrolled through, and even if you pay attention, if you don't pay attention to what is on your screen, it is going in subliminally. And this again is the purpose of social media memes, is these are the thought implantations. These are subliminally putting thoughts, ideas, opinions, narratives into your minds that you may not be willing that you're even absorbing, but they are, trust me, being used to purposely suggest ideas, opinions and narratives to you through social media, subliminally, sometimes very, very blatantly, as we have experienced throughout this week. But food in the future, food as we are accustomed to, having meat and potatoes, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables available to us, fresh milk, eggs, stuff like this, is going to soon be a thing of the past. And what they are going to be replacing those items with are going to be plant-based substitutes, synthetic food. Everything is synthesized. If you can make it in a factory rather than grow it naturally, that is the way these folks are going. They don't want us to get anything natural. They don't want us to get natural sunlight. They don't want us to get natural dopamine. They don't want us to get natural vitamins. They no longer want us to be able to eat natural food. Now, processed foods, junk foods, fructose, corn syrup, all this bad shit has been around for an awful long time, and certainly within North America. Some of the foods that are available for Americans to purchase in other parts of the world would not even be legally allowed to be consumed by humans, yet alone fit to sell for human consumption. And let that sort of sink in if you do, folks. So, Frankenfoods have been around for a very, very long time, but they always called it junk food. They never ever tried to brand it as healthy. Now, the worst thing with this vegan products that are there, these unnatural vegan food products, because don't get me wrong, folks, fruit, vegetables, nuts, berries, things like lentils, beans, chickpeas, these are all vegan, you know, dietary items, and these are all items that I actually do eat quite frequently and quite regularly. Now, there's nothing wrong with eating that, and if vegans wanted to go out of their way and eat their nuts and their berries and their fruits and vegetables and stuff and not kill animals and, you know, live guilt-free, that is one thing altogether. But to say you're a vegan and you're saving the planet by consuming fucking food that is chemically produced, it isn't even real. Just because they call it plant, don't make it plant. In the United Kingdom, a very popular sort of bar snack is something known as crab sticks, but crab sticks don't contain any crab, and they have been required to call them crab flavored sticks. Now, many of you must have seen, you know, fishless plant-based fingers, you know, beefless beef burgers, porkless pork pies, sausageless sausage. They're all made with plant-based substances, none of which are naturally produced. You know, this is all Frankenfood, all very, very unhealthy, and can't be good for us in the long run, but this is what they are going to get used to. And the other thing, I think in not so long, you know, we will be used to possibly having to line up and wait for our weekly, you know, allotment of food supplies, and you know, we won't be able to have any more, we won't be able to have any less. Maybe social credit scores might be in place by the time this happens, and depending on how good you are, you might be, you know, rewarded with a few extra bonus items in your weekly sundry items, but if you're not so good, then you might be getting just the very, very basics you need to survive. You know, we also have 3D printed food now, where you can kind of get these weird tubes of flavored paste that you plug into a printer, similar to, you know, you put ink into a you know, an ink printer, or you know, if you're doing 3D printing with plastics, you can put different colored plastics to model together and make stuff. But now you can get 3D printed food, where you get these different sort of pastes of food that you sort of put into this printer, and it can combine different, you know, combinations to create flavors, and we'll print food that looks like a bit of steak but probably doesn't taste anything like it. But before we do let you know what we are in store for tonight, let me see if we've got any comments of reference. Kim says those are so disgusting, and she's put some puking emojis. I mean, guys, has anyone out there actually tasted or tried a Beyond Meat product, or an Impossible sausage or anything? I've never actually eaten one, but during my time in Toronto, when I was working in the kitchens as a chef, I did work in a restaurant or two that did have these items on the menu, and I can tell you, without joking, without lying, without trying to be comedic, they so smell absolutely fucking rancid. And they kind of have this substance in it to sort of create the effect that it's a juicy burger, and that juice smells like hooker's vag with yeast infection rubbed into it. Honest to God, it is vile. There's nothing appetizing about the aroma, so I can only surmise how absolutely disgusting they can taste it. Tranquil Vortex has tasted, well, good for you. I would rather eat bugs, and I have eaten bugs, if that tells you anything. I have eaten bugs willingly, but I wouldn't be willing to eat a Beyond Meat product. But Trank, let us know in the chat, sweetheart, what was that experience like? Can you explain, sort of, maybe as best you can in text, what it tasted like, how the texture sort of was? Vanderberg says, I only eat 2 times a week meat and 2 times a week chicken. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Actually, I'm a little bit sort of similar to that. I sort of tend to eat, you know, 2 or 3 days I eat chicken, and I'll switch it up and have maybe some pork or beef, or you know, occasionally I do like a little bit of fish. But I always, you know, I eat meat daily, but the meat part of my diet isn't the biggest part. I do eat rice, I do eat beans, I try and eat as much fresh vegetables and fresh fruit as I can in my diet, and do try to get a lot of balance, you know, a lot of my nutrients and vitamins from a balanced diet and from the food I eat, rather than having to buy vitamin pills and that sort of shit. But like everyone, I do enjoy a little bit of guilty pleasures now and then, and you know, I do buy bags of chips, soda pops, like occasionally sort of cookies and stuff. But if I do like to snack, I really do like to snack on trail mix, because nuts, berries, and you know, a little piece of candy thrown in as the treat. But you know, that is one of the things I like to do if I am sort of kicking back, watching some movies or TV shows. Big bag of trail mix, and I'm happy as Larry to eat all of that. Trank said corn is tasty. Now that is something I have tried a while ago, and sort of corn was part of the sort of vegetarian agenda that sort of hit us back in the 1980s, and sort of when vegetarianism was introduced, sort of back then, it was sort of almost as radical as we tend to think veganism now. It's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Can't eat meat? And I do actually remember as a teenager having a vegetarian girlfriend that didn't last very long. I will say that much, and mainly because it didn't last because I wasn't allowed to be a meat eater. You know, it wasn't like we could go out on a date and she'd be willing to eat meat one day, and I'll say, you know what, I'll meet you halfway and we'll go and get some veggies the other week. She was rigid. I'm going to be a vegetarian. We can't murder animals, yada yada yada. And it's a very similar agenda in play now. In fact, they're using the very, very same sort of script. But corn, as you were mentioning it, which is spelled Q-O-R-N, I believe, or Q-U-O-R-N, was a sort of beyond meat of that era. It was a sort of vegetarian option, that a substitute for meat, and you could use it as ground meat in things, you know, like pasta sauces, chilies. I don't know if you were able to sort of make meatballs, because it wasn't very squishy, but I have eaten corn a couple of times in sort of chilies and spaghetti sauces, and I never actually sort of went out of my way to buy corn sausages or anything like that. And yeah, it wasn't bad. Yeah, my goodness, Alan Williams, Linda McCartney. I remember those commercials. She brought out a whole line of vegetarian sort of ping and poke stuff that you could put in the microwave, ready-made meals. Thank you for that. Yeah, I can. Linda McCartney. That was the jingle, if you were wondering what I'm going on about. Alan, would you be in the United Kingdom? I'm guessing you would be. I don't know if Linda McCartney vegetarian meals made their way to the United States, but I believe Linda McCartney actually used corn. I think, you know, maybe on some of those packages. I may be wrong, but I think if I remember correctly, that corn was used as part of those ingredients in the Linda McCartney meal line. You are in the United Kingdom. I was once upon a time from Swindon, Wiltshire. Let me know whereabouts in the UK you are, north, south, east or west. But I've spent an awful long time, close to 17 years in North America, the United States of California. I was there for 4 years, nearly 10 years in Toronto, and coming on to 3 years in sunny Mexico. But yeah, Curious Georgia, if you're in the United States, then I'm not entirely sure that that brand of you know, food line would have made it across the pond to the American stores. Suspicious Skies, hello. When did you sneak in? Corn has no benefits other than cleaning your colon, lol. Yeah, it's sort of one of those weird things, isn't it? You know, we've all eaten corn on the cob and been to the bathroom the next day and thought, why didn't I just scrape it straight into the toilet? But a lot of it is the sort of casing or the covering or the coating that is on the sort of corn kernel itself is something we can't digest. So Alan, you're in North Wales. Well, welcome. It's always good to have people across the pond, because sometimes they get my my British comedy references on occasion. Curious Georgia, as much as I love veggies, meat is a must. Yeah, and I really do, and something I actually found myself enjoying an awful lot more than I used to enjoy when I was in Canada in particular, since I've been in Mexico, is fruit and vegetables, because they taste like fruit and vegetables. vegetables. Unlike the United States, Canada and the UK, GMOs are outlawed and forbidden here. Almost everything has to come naturally, and a lot of the sort of fruit and vegetables that are available in the store don't have very far to come. And not only that, you know, there's sort of almost any given day you will encounter somebody on the side of the street with a little car, one of those three-wheel bicycles, riding around selling local produce, be it fruit, vegetables. You know, I've got mangoes growing close to me in trees, pineapples, coconuts around me, edible cacti and stuff. So there's a lot of fresh produce here. And you know, I did work in the kitchens as a chef for nearly 10 years, and you know, a lot of the food I used to eat or serve, you know, it used to look nice. We used to have beautiful red plump strawberries, but flavorless. We used to have these beautiful green avocados, but flavorless. And all of this food is because they sort of, you know, use GMOs to sort of make it look as beautiful as it possibly can. But it does compromise the sort of flavor. Funny enough, Alan Williams, I did have a video that got banned of the Syrian stabber event. I don't know if you can recall that last year. I think it was in Paris, France, when supposedly a Syrian stabber went on the rampage and stabbed a bunch of babies. But I did re-edit that video, repurpose it, and run it with the Benny Hill the Benny Hill music as the backing track. And funny enough, it looks so much like a comedy sketch. It is untrue. So my goodness, 8 folks have already decided they've had enough of RD and are no longer willing to watch. Or maybe there's another stream that they think there's something more interesting to pay attention to over there. I can assure you there's not. This is the place to be. But if you think there's something better elsewhere, then that is up to you. But if it don't apply, let it fly. You good folks that are still here. 10 now. Another person, shit, he's onto us. I better get out before he notices another one's gone. There is another stream I do want to go and watch now. I mean, it's not that I've got nothing against you, RD, but I'd rather not watch you if there was something better to do. And probably they've gone over to another stream just to say hello to everybody all over again, because I have seen that happen, guys. You're lucky I don't share some of my screen recordings, so some of the regular offenders being disloyal in leaving RD streams to go and watch other people. Shame on you. Shame on you. But guys, tonight we are going to watch or rewatch if you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, it is going to be news to you, but we are going to rewatch my second most watched video ever, Soylent Green Decoded, which kind of does talk a little bit about what I've just been talking about, the vegan agenda, and maybe what is in store or what already is in place that we haven't really paid attention to. And once that has done, you will join me again live and maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. Unfortunately, I do stream live off of my phone. The streaming application I use, the OBS app, unfortunately doesn't give me the ability to invite a guest on and have you in here with me. So at the moment, can't offer you a guest call-in spot after the show, but maybe in the future we'll figure something out to do that. But we will come back live and have a little chat about it. Good news, folks. This ain't going to be a 3, 4, 5 hour long extravaganza or escapade, whatever you want to look at it or call it. It is less than 2 hours, folks, so you don't have to stretch your attention spans to any great, real great lengths. It is about the length of a standard movie these days. But that being said, folks, I'm going to come in and join you in the chat once I can find the video wherever it is. There we go. I am momentarily going to deactivate my microphone, but as I said, guys, it's about 1:30, maybe 1:40, no more than that, and this is the second most watched video on my channel, and a video I'm actually a little bit proud of, and actually a video that took over a year to put together, mainly because sort of in the middle of producing it, I left Canada and come to Mexico, and it took me a while to get back into complete completing it. So some of the content will be referencing to me being in Toronto, and towards the back end of it, it will be referencing me being in Mexico. But that is unimportant. The message and the information contained within it is what I feel is the importance. And please, guys, I'm not saying this just sort of as the YouTuber thing to say. Stick around to the end for the shocker of shocks. If you guys can still be shocked. Welcome, James Malcolm. I saw you just there in the chat, so I will welcome you before I come and join you in the chat. But I am deactivating my mic and camera now, and I'm going to technically switch from presenter to co-viewer with you guys.
First stage removal. Streets prohibited to non-permits in 1 hour. Streets prohibited.
What is for dinner? How about a substance that replaces food, giving you all the calories and nutrients you need? What in the world is this all about? Jonathan Seri's live in Atlanta. Jonathan, what is it about? Good morning.
Hi, Bill. It's called Soylent, and it was created by Rob Reinhardt, a Georgia Tech graduate who ultimately sees his product as a solution for world hunger. Because his product ships as a powder, it's easy to transport and can go for a long time before it starts spoiling. Reinhardt says because half of the world's food ends up going to waste, hunger on a global level is not really about lack of resources. Listen.
Once we really turn this into an engineering and logistics problem, we can solve those, and we can. I really think that we can get the costs lower and lower, and to the point where no one would really have to worry. A massive benefit to humanity.
Now, to develop his product, Reinhardt went to an online crowdfunding site. His goal was to raise $100,000. Instead, within a month, he raised $800,000. So, Bill, obviously a lot of people out there share his dream.
Is there a market for this in the U.S.? I mean, what have you found out?
Yeah, Rob Reinhardt certainly thinks so. In fact, while we were producing this story, the Fox News team here in Atlanta actually tried Soylent. It tastes like a mildly sweet soy milk. Reinhardt likes to add vanilla to give it extra flavor, but foodies out there will point out it's no replacement for the enjoyment of a gourmet meal.
Food is designed to feed the body, yes, but we have a tongue that has taste buds on it. So that means they're there for a reason.
We should definitely enjoy all of the social and cultural aspects for food because it can be really fun, but most of the time it's really not that memorable. And most of the time I can't really be bothered, and I'd just rather be doing something else.
Reinhardt sees Soylent as a nutritious alternative to getting lunch from a drive-thru on a busy day, which many of us are guilty of, and an ideal product for single folks who don't have anyone to impress by spending hours in the kitchen. And Bill, looking back on my bachelor days back in the 90s, I lived on a lot of canned tuna and spaghetti. Bill?
Salisbury steaks, popping right there in the oven. Cost, how much is this?
Yeah, right now the cost is about $2 per serving, and while that sounds very inexpensive to the average American, it's more than a lot of people in developing countries can afford, especially some poor countries where people are making an average of $30 a month. But Reinhardt believes that as he mass produces his product, he can get the price down, way down, to the point that it will be viable for shipment to all parts of the world. Bill?
Hope it tastes good. There's that. Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Seri out of Atlanta today.
Silent breed is people!
They've got to tell people. Tell them what? The oceans die. Plankton's die. It's people. Silent breed is made out of people.
They're making our food. Next thing they'll be breeding us like cattle for food. You better tell them. You better tell them.
What is the secret of Soylent Green. New York City, in the year 2022. Nothing runs anymore. Nothing works. But the people are the same. And the people will do anything to get what they need.
This is the police.
What they need most is Soylent Green.
The supply of Soylent Green has been exhausted. Return to your home.
What is the secret of Soylent Green? You will find out why Soylent Green means life. You will find out why Soylent Green means death.
We gotta stop him.
What is the secret of Soylent Green?
Please.
Now, a new film examines a more frightening and possibly more real future. It bears out an ominous prediction. 200 years ago, Thomas Robert Malthus proposed a theory about people and their world, that they tend to multiply faster than the amounts of food and materials available to them. Under the direction of Richard Fleischer, a movie company prepares to film a detective story within the chilling atmosphere of a degenerating civilization. Everything and everyone has broken down. The world is at a virtual standstill, overpopulated, overpolluted. The only force capable of dealing with this reality is the state-controlled police. The movie makers envisioned future foods to be processed in plants capable of mixing artificial and natural elements together. It is to one of these plants that Heston heads to uncover the ultimate secret that will conclude his case. Charlton Heston is playing one of those few men of persistent integrity who, in every time, seek to control their own destiny and the destiny of the world. He and a movie company are projecting man's chilling future on a motion picture screen. The ominous prediction of Soylent Green.
Soylent Green is people!
In the year 2022, the cumulative effects of overpopulation, pollution and some apparent climate catastrophe have caused severe worldwide shortages of food, water and housing. There are 40 million people in New York City alone, where only the city's elite can afford spacious apartments, clean water and natural food, and even then at horrendously high prices. The homes of the elite usually include concubines who are referred to as furniture, and serve the tenants as slaves. Within the city lives NYPD detective Frank Thorne and his aged friend Saul Roth, a highly intelligent analyst, referred to as a book. Roth remembers the world when it had animals and real food, and possesses a small library of reference materials to assist Thorne. Thorne is tasked with investigating the murder of the wealthy and influential William R. Simonson, and quickly learns that Simonson had been assassinated and was a board member of Soylent Industries. Soylent Industries, which derives its name from a combination of soy and lentil, controls the food supply of half of the world and sells the artificially produced wafers, including Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow. Their latest product is the far more flavorful and nutritious Soylent Green, advertised as being made from ocean plankton, but is in short supply. As a result of the weekly supply bottlenecks, the hungry masses regularly riot, and they are brutally removed from the streets by means of police vehicles that scoop the rioters with large shovels and dump them within the vehicle's container. With the help of furniture, Shirl, with whom Thorne begins a relationship, his investigation leads to a priest that Simonson had visited and confessed to shortly before his death. The priest is only able to hint at a gruesome truth before he himself is murdered. By order of the governor, Thorne is instructed to end the investigation, but he presses on. He is attacked during a riot, by the same assassin who killed Simonson, but the killer is crushed by a police vehicle. Roth brings 2 volumes of oceanographic reports Thorne had procured from Simonson's apartment to the team of books at the Supreme Exchange. The books confirm that the oceans no longer produce plankton, and deduce that Soylent Green is produced from some inconceivable supply of protein. They also deduce that Simonson's murder was ordered by his fellow Soylent Industries board members, knowing he was increasingly troubled by the truth. Roth is so disgusted with his life in a degraded world that he decides to return to the home of God, and seeks assisted suicide at a government clinic. Thorne finds a message left by Roth and rushes to stop him, but arrives too late. Roth and Thorne are mesmerized by the euthanasia process's visual and musical montage, long-gone forests, wild animals, rivers and ocean life. Before dying, Roth whispers what he has learned to Thorne, begging him to find proof, so that the Council of Nations can take action. Thorne boards a truck transporting bodies from the euthanasia center to a recycling plant, where the secret is revealed: human corpses are being converted into Soylent Green. Thorne is spotted and kills his attackers, but is himself wounded. As Thorne is tended to by paramedics, he urges his police chief to spread the truth he has discovered and initiate proceedings against the company. While being taken away, Thorne shouts out to the surrounding crowd, "Soylent Green is people."
What is Soylent? Soylent is food. While not intended to replace every meal, Soylent can replace any meal. Designed to be nutritionally complete, our latest formula, Soylent 2.0, offers a pleasantly subtle flavor, a smooth texture, and a lasting fullness. Put simply, Soylent satisfies your hunger. Each 400-calorie bottle of Soylent 2.0 provides 20% of your daily nutritional requirements. Soylent 2.0 contains no cholesterol, no animal products, only 2 grams of saturated fat per serving, and has a low glycemic index. Our aseptic bottling process provides a 1-year shelf life without the use of preservatives or the need for refrigeration. This bottle of Soylent contains 3 familiar macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Your body needs all 3, and we chose the sources of our macronutrients carefully. From soy, we extract protein isolate, a form of high-quality protein removed from the other elements of the soybean. This protein provides Soylent 2.0 with the highest scoring amino acid profile for digestibility and absorption. From beets, we derive isomaltulose, a slow-burning carbohydrate which offers sustained energy without blood sugar spikes or crashes. The third source of calories in Soylent 2.0 is not found on a traditional farm or even grown on land. Over 30% of all the calories in Soylent 2.0 come from renewable algae sources. These fast-growing unicellular organisms are among the most prevalent life forms on Earth. Today, our algae is produced in highly efficient fermentation tanks, requiring no pesticides, and using a fraction of the land and water required by traditional agricultural methods. Widespread use of Soylent could drastically reduce the ecological impact of food production and encourage a shared future of abundance. Come learn more at Soylent.com.
Today, we're featuring Rob Reinhardt, who's founder and CEO of Soylent, a meal replacement product that's all the rage in the tech universe. Rob, welcome.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
Soylent. How old were you when you started this?
24.
Your company's now valued at what's in the, like $100 million?
That was a few years ago. We've grown substantially since then.
That's crazy. Crazy.
Food is a huge market.
So How did you get initial funding to do this? So were you using your savings to start this? Was it in your garage?
We'd raised a small amount of capital from a startup incubator founded by Paul Graham called Y Combinator. And then after we started to get off the ground a little bit, we used crowdfunding. We raised $3 million in a crowdfunding campaign.
Was it the word Soylent that was getting people?
It definitely stimulated some conversation.
You're too young to remember the original reference.
I'm a huge fan of the movie and the book.
Soylent Green.
Soylent Green.
What is the secret of Soylent Green?
Keeping that science aspect and that science fiction aspect is very important to me, because when you think of Soylent Green in the book, Make Room, that's a very real problem about population growth and burdening the Earth's resources. I think we need to take these problems very seriously and catch them before they start.
So what are you trying to do here?
We're trying to make food better. We wanted to see what a balanced diet entails and then meet those requirements as elementally as possible.
So elementally, you mean sort of molecular nutritional level of the product?
Exactly. Goal was to use science to improve the food system.
Whatever you put in here, you want to say it's better than like the whole meal I just had? I had like eggplant parmesan last night.
Well, it depends what you're optimizing for.
Optimized for pleasure. How about that?
This may not be the most pleasurable meal in the galaxy.
Okay.
However, it is very functional.
Functional food.
Right. Ever since food fortification from a generation ago. I mean, iodized salt, fortified rice, cereal, even macaroni and cheese has to be fortified.
Yeah, it's all the grains.
Nutritional deficiencies used to be just part of life, and now they're gone.
They're gone completely.
Just gone.
This is an engineering problem.
Right.
A food engineering problem.
Food engineering problem, and it's a very complex problem. I mean, it's pretty astounding that we can make something like this that will sit on a shelf without refrigeration for a year.
Is the food you want in the zombie apocalypse.
Exactly. Preppers love this stuff.
So that's fascinating, the future of food. $2, under $3.
That's a little over $3. This is under $3.
You're out of control.
Best is yet to come.
Hopefully you guys are enjoying this latest installment of Reality Decoded, brought to you from Shit Video Productions, and it is, as I'm sure you are very aware, all about Soylent Green. And Soylent Green is a piece of fiction I refer to as my 1984, another piece of fiction written by George Orwell that seemed to predict the society in our future way before the technology even existed that he wrote about in his novel. And Soylent Green is a piece of fiction that I have spoken about many times and during my endeavors as a YouTuber, and it happens to be my second most censored subject in topic, along with a certain September Tuesday morning of 2001. But Soylent Green, as I said, guys, is something I do hold very dear to my heart, and do consider it to be a very prophetic piece of fiction that is coming ever more of a reality. And we are going to look at a few more videos and stuff about some of the Franken foods, Soylent Green type plant-based monstrosities that is being passed off its food these days, and some of the players involved in making that happen. And there is a very good reason for the vegan agenda that has sort of been rolled out for the last few years now. Now I do have vegan friends, and they're sort of real vegans that just sort of get on and do their thing, don't make a fuss about it, and sort of don't really bother too much if people aren't vegans. But the new age virtual signaling vegans are all up in these impossible meats and beyond meats and all this kind of, as we are referring to, Soylent Green type Franken foods. But Soylent Green not only predicted the horrors of a plant-based plankton protein, as it was advertised, that was in actual fact recycled human corpses that were produced en masse by euthanasia clinics, the Food and Drug Administration working hand in hand. there. But the reality more of Soylent Green is that it's set in 2022, as you probably know already, and that is just over 6 months away, and already we are looking and have been in somewhat of a Soylent Green society for the last 16-17 months under the COVIDian scam. And in the early days of the scam pandemic, we did start to see lots and lots of people lining up, socially distancing outside of supermarkets and grocery stores, being restricted the amount of items they may be able to buy, and all of them were wearing masks, just as we saw and see in Soylent Green in the opening sequences of people lining up waiting to get their government issued Soylent Green wafers, which is distributed once a week. And we see an awful lot of poverty and the desolation around the city that was once New York. And there are a lucky bunch of elites that do seem to be living in a luxurious lifestyle and don't really be going without without anything, it seems, and they even have their own furniture, aka sex slave concubines, as you have already seen. But are we heading to a more drastic sort of era in our modern day society that is going to start looking more like Soylent Green? Again, the climate issue is something that is also featured very much in Soylent Green, as well as a sort of poverty-stricken society that relies on the government now under the COVIDian era, although as of yet there are not millions of people living on the streets. Toronto does have an increasingly rise in tent cities that do seem to be growing by the day. It does have a lot of people that are out of work, no longer essential, that are relying on government handouts and payments each and every month to keep them from feeding. So they're already kind of being a little bit dependent on the state. But if this is prolonged for any greater length of time, how much longer is it going to be before everybody is living in tent cities or living in their SUV or sedan, living in cars, or crouching in doorways, in stairwells, as we saw in Soylent Green? But this article that we are looking at right now is what Soylent Green was telling us about the future, and in brackets, much of it has come true. This was written in 2018, and in 2021, as I said, 6 months away from 2022, the year that Soylent Green is set in, it's looking more and more like Soylent Green is coming more and more truer than it was when this article was written. Now, we do have a quirky little feature on this article where we can listen to the author read it himself. So that is what we're going to do, and there is Charlton Heston, good old Chuck, with the revelation and the startlement in his eyes when he realizes that Soylent Green is in fact people. And one could argue, is it as iconic as him in Planet of the Apes when he realizes that the Planet of the Apes is in fact Earth? And damn you damn crazy maniacs that did it to yourselves, it was Earth all along. Oh, he was wrong. And the apes certainly made a monkey out of him. But the revelation at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, Soylent Green is people. The plant-based plankton protein that was allegedly the ingredients of Soylent Green was also mixed with decomposed corpses that were put through an industrial food factory and processed into those little quirky green wafers.
Green was telling us about the future. Much of it has come true. By John Tuttle. In Predict. Human creativity often has the stunning attribute of depicting what is to come. In examining the literary works of visionary author Jules Verne, we see many of the technological inventions being discussed which were not mainstream, or even explored, at Verne's time. But in the decades following his works, many of the inventions highlighted throughout his work became prominent contraptions used by society. Similarly, the 1973 futuristic sci-fi film Soylent Green managed to depict countless happenings and trends in society which we see becoming mainstream today or could become popularized in the near future. It stars Charlton Heston, and, though its cinematography and storytelling are not as epic or grand as that of his earlier films, such as Ben-Hur, The Ten Commandments, etc., Soylent Green attempts to send its audience an important message. It depicts the dangers of mainstream dependence on government support which, when food is rationed or even held back, does physical harm to the people as well as harm to the government's reputation. In addition to this, we see an extensive corruption of the government elsewhere, including the so-called law enforcement practiced in 2022 in what once was called the land of the free. All people are suffering, and vices of all kinds are rampant throughout society. Many women have become the victims of a severe and widely accepted ideology of sexual objectification, so much so that the women owned by certain male figures are officially labeled furniture. That is what they have been reduced to. It is as if humanity had reverted to its perverse and pagan practices of times long ago, such as the ownership of women chiefly as pleasurable things or any other form of slavery. Accordingly, women's clothing in Soylent Green's futuristic portrayal is scanty or missing at times, this only lending itself toward the perpetuated image of women as sexual objects, as if sexuality was the end-all be-all of a human being's merit. The way women are frequently treated in Soylent Green's fictional society goes to show that when sexuality is being honored above all other attributes, there is no dignity in it. Some of these aspects depicted in the film are nothing new and are seen in numerous countries throughout history. Yet, we see so many of these vices very much alive in our modern day. We don't seem to have learned from the past. However, other elements shown in the movie are not found frequently throughout history. Soylent Green is one of a small number of Hollywood films showing the dangers of global warming, one of the prime causes of which is greenhouse gas emissions which, even by 2022, in the film, continue to be belched out of humanity's environmental detrimental factories and contraptions. Poverty is widespread. Sustenance is scarcer, and it is a pathetic substitute for genuine meals. Euthanasia, or the act of assisted suicide, murder, is a common practice in several countries today. The notion of doing away with unwanted people by ending their misery seems to be a commonly upheld one. Not only is this a gravely horrible practice in and of itself, it is mortally sinful, but it can lead to fully well-bodied people ending their lives unjustly. They play God with the ultimate cry of "my body, my life, my choice." They might think that it is their right to end their life exactly when they want. Yet, they never had this power over their own creation. They did not get to decide when they were born into time, and yet they feel they get to decide when they'll leave it. This is exactly what happens in Soylent Green. The main character's best friend learns some dark, heart-wrenching news and in a moment of despair walks himself into pretty much a euthanasia clinic. This character dies, depicting the immense sorrow and loss this act brings into the world. But as far as the screenplay of the film is concerned, even this most heinous crime against human dignity is not the last straw. It isn't the chief horror of Soylent Green's take on the 21st century. This reserved for an association with a staple needed for man's survival, food. The food is peculiar, bland at best. At the climax of the film, the main character, along with the audience, discovers Soylent Green, a food brand, is made from the corpses of human beings. The atrocity highlighted in the film is that of human beings degrading themselves or certain people degrading their peers, such as the large number of women being treated as mere objects or the euthanizing of hundreds, if not thousands. But the degradation manifests itself most significantly in the mind of the lead character when he discovers that practically the only food available to humanity is humanity. Humanity has degraded into a society of cannibals, somewhat similar to the Morlocks of H.G. Wells' time machine tale. The primary message which can be taken away from Soylent Green is that people need to be appreciative of their fellow human beings and the world around them. People need to first watch out for their own and then for the environment they call home. This film depicts the consequences if this type of caring protection is not upheld.
This is an impossible burger. It tastes like meat and bleeds like meat, but it's actually made out of plants.
Meat consumers, when they hear about it, they think it's going to suck, okay? They think this is going to be just like every other veggie burger, a sad attempt at, replicating this unbelievably delicious burger that I love.
And those consumers are the ones Impossible Foods is targeting, with its beef, pork, and sausage, made primarily out of water, soy protein, coconut oil, sunflower oil, and natural flavors.
The only consumer we care about is an omnivore, a meat consumer. Please, vegans and vegetarians, if you like your veggie burger, keep eating it.
That's because Impossible Foods wants to replace the estimated $1.4 trillion global animal meat industry to reduce the climate change impacts of animal agriculture.
Plant-based products are going to completely replace the animal-based products in the food world within the next 15 years. That's our mission.
But America loves its beef, pork, and chicken. And the meat industry isn't backing down without a fight against so-called fake meat. To fend off the naysayers, Impossible Foods figured out how to make a plant-based burger sexy.
From the way it smells, the way it cooks, the way it looks when it's done cooking, even the way it looks before you cook it. I would describe the flavor of Impossible as the closest to meat that I've ever tasted.
Yeah. The company created buzz for its meatless burgers by courting meat-loving celebrity chefs and recognition from the tech community. Demand for the burger exploded in 2019, leading to a highly publicized shortage at restaurants. Even celebrities pitched in to help Impossible Foods scale up its manufacturing capabilities in order to meet growing demand. Since 2011, the private company has raised $1.3 billion at a valuation of about $4 billion. Here's how Impossible Foods turned a plant-based burger into a foodie sensation. This is Suddenly Obsessed. Impossible Foods was founded in 2011 by Pat Brown, a Stanford Medical School professor who loved his job and had no interest in pursuing business. But he wanted to help solve climate change by focusing on animal agriculture, a leading source of greenhouse gas emissions and biodiversity loss. Brown quickly realized the problem wasn't going to be fixed by regulating the livestock industry or persuading people they should eat less meat.
All those things have been tried multiple times. They've never even come close to success. Even most of the environmentalists that go to climate and environmental conferences are eating steak for dinner. The only way to solve the problem is to accept the fact that people who love meat and dairy foods and fish, they're not going to change their diet. They're not going to stop eating foods that are a big source of pleasure in their daily lives. The way to solve the problem is to figure out a better way of giving consumers these foods that they're going to keep wanting, do a better job of delivering it than the current industry does, compete in the marketplace, and pull the economic rug out from under that industry.
In 2011, Impossible Foods raised about $9 million in its initial funding round. Brown hired mostly scientists to try and figure out on a molecular level what makes meat so delicious. The answer? Heme, a protein essential to all living cells.
The iron-containing molecule that makes meat red, but is also responsible for the bloody taste of raw meat and the incredibly intense flavor of cooked meat.
To produce heme in massive quantities, the company extracts DNA from soy plants, which have an abundance of heme. That DNA is inserted into genetically modified yeast, which is fermented to produce lots of heme. The company debuted the Impossible Burger in 2016. The Impossible Burger 2.0 followed in early 2019. Impossible Sausage hit the market in 2020. The company wanted to start with a beef alternative, since cows are the most harmful type of livestock for the environment. According to the UN, the cattle industry alone accounts for nearly 9% of global human-caused emissions, especially considering cows expel an estimated 160 to 320 liters of methane per day. Brown says replacing 1 pound of beef with Impossible reduces your greenhouse gas footprint by the equivalent of driving 36 miles in an average American car.
You save water that is equivalent to the average daily household water consumption in the U.S. You free up a land area that's sufficient to support 1.5 new trees.
But that currently comes at a cost. 1 pound of Impossible meat is priced at about $10 to $12, depending on where you buy it, while 1 pound of ground beef costs on average just $4 to $6. While experts say Impossible meat is undoubtedly better for the environment, it's not necessarily considered healthy.
What it replaces is a burger made from a cow, not a kale salad.
Impossible meat is comparable to 80% lean, 20% fat ground beef, the most popular lean-to-fat ratio when it comes to protein and calories. But Impossible meat has less fat, no cholesterol, no antibiotics or hormones, and is higher in certain vitamins and minerals. But Impossible also has about 5 times more sodium and is heavily processed, though not all processed foods are unhealthy. So the Impossible Burger is better for the environment and comparable to beef for your health. But does it taste just as good as meat? I asked my boss Nate, who's a legitimate beef connoisseur.
I got choice 80/20 ground beef that is sold in every single grocery store.
And what did it cost?
$6 for 2 pounds.
This is actually really good, I have to say.
It's very good. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
This is not as good as a regular burger.
I think the other one just had more of that meaty heartiness, that savoriness that people love about meat.
I can definitely see how dressed up like a Whopper, you couldn't tell the difference. But meat and bread, it doesn't compare.
Okay, so if you're in a restaurant and you have Impossible and beef available and they're the same price, what are you gonna go for?
Beef.
Really?
Every time.
I eat meat, but I would take this because I'm really motivated to want to eat less meat, you know, and some people aren't. It's people like my boss Nate and myself who Impossible Foods is targeting with its plant-based meat. People who eat meat and don't want to stop or can't stop because it's just good.
All the plant-based products combined have a fraction of the market share of the animal-based product. There's just no upside to trying to compete against each other for that tiny share of market. All the growth is in the omnivore market.
In the US, plant-based meat sales amounted to $622.6 million in 2019. That's compared to $61.4 billion in traditional meat sales in the same period. Impossible's top competitor, Beyond Meat, which went public in 2019, brought in about $298 million in net revenue globally that year, more than triple the year before. Projections about how fast the global plant-based meat market could grow vary a lot, to $85 billion by 2030 on the high end, to a more conservative estimate of about $8 billion by 2026. That's still a fraction of traditional meat sales today. Barclays pegs the global meat industry at $1.4 trillion, a number expected to multiply as the world population grows and incomes rise in developing countries. Brown says only about 10% of the US population of 330 million has even tried an Impossible Burger.
The other 90% is in this category of people who think, it's just another crappy veggie burger, why would I want to try it, and so forth. The biggest challenge right now is figuring out how to effectively, in a credible way, communicate to meat lovers that you should try this.
Impossible Foods planned its initial rollout to drum up buzz with its target audience. Instead of debuting in grocery stores, the Impossible Burger launched in a handful of high-end, buzzed-about restaurants, helmed by meat-loving celebrity chefs like Tracy Desjardins, Chris Cosentino, and Netflix star David Chang. Chang was the first to introduce the Impossible Burger at his restaurant, Momofuku Nishi, to lines around the block.
So this guy is a meat guy to the bone, the perfect person for us to launch with.
After all, Chang once famously removed nearly all the vegetarian options at one of his restaurants to make a point about refusing to give in to vegetarian trends.
The most important message we need to send to consumers is that uncompromisingly delicious meat that can satisfy hardcore people like these chefs doesn't have to come from animals anymore.
for the first couple of years, it was super hard to get an Impossible Burger. And so I think that was certainly by design, because that's how marketing works, but that was also just what they had the capacity to do.
Ultimately, the Impossible Burger's launch was much better for publicity than it was for the company's bottom line.
That made a splash that was way out of proportion to how much we sold.
But that was all part of the plan. Impossible Foods took to the market with a strategy that has worked for other buzzworthy brands like Tesla and Oatly. Make a premium product that is hard to get, exclusive, and desirable to build brand cachet and recognition. Then create an affordable version for the mass market and try to become a household name. In early 2019, a new product rollout and spike in publicity pushed the company to go mainstream. The Impossible Burger 2.0 debuted at one of the most buzzworthy events in tech, the Consumer Electronics Show, in January 2019, with improvements in flavor, texture, nutrition, and appearance. The burger won numerous CES awards, generating a crush of consumer interest.
And it was such a big growth moment. The demand over a very short period of time outstripped our ability to supply it.
Amid a highly publicized shortage, Impossible Foods scrambled to scale up its manufacturing. The company began operating its Oakland, California plant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and even contracted with major meat manufacturer OSI Group, a longtime supplier of McDonald's. In 2019, Impossible Foods raised another $300 million to ramp up production from the likes of Google Ventures, Bill Gates, and a slew of entertainment celebrities. Today, Impossible meats are sold in 30,000 food service locations and 9,000 food retailers. But Impossible Foods is still a long way off from its goal.
We made our mission to completely replace animals in the food system by 2035. The pig and the cow are not working on getting more delicious. Impossible Foods is working every day, working hard every day to make our products more delicious.
But the beef industry isn't backing down without a fight. A growing number of states are passing legislation pushed by cattle industry groups that bar companies from representing products as meat if they don't come from an animal. The largest meat companies in the world have also jumped on the bandwagon and launched their own plant-based meat products. As Impossible Foods achieves more economies of scale, prices will come down. But to reach its goal and win over the hardcore meat lovers, Impossible Foods will have to convince them its plant-based meat tastes just as good, if not better.
A large part of the carbon we have in the atmosphere now is caused by the electricity grid, which is about 25% or so.
Exactly.
So 24%, it comes from agriculture and forestry. Why is that causing such a big increase in carbon?
Well, that category is a variety of things. When you clear land, you're taking in the carbon that's stored, say, in the trees or plants there, and you're releasing all of that, like burning the land, say, in Indonesia for palm oil plantations. Another thing is that cows and other grass-eating species have a digestion system that emits methane. And methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. And so cows alone account for about 6% of global emissions. And so we need to change cows, just cows alone.
How are we going to do that?
Well, actually, of all the categories, the one that has gone better than I would have expected 5 years ago is this work to make what's called artificial meat. And so you have people like Impossible or Beyond Meat, both of which I invested in.
You eat it as well, and you like it?
Absolutely.
You do. Okay.
You can go to Burger King and buy the Impossible Burger.
All right. Is it healthier for you or just healthier for the atmosphere?
It's slightly healthier for you in terms of less cholesterol. It's, of course, dramatic reduction in methane emissions, animal cruelty, manure management, and the pressure that meat consumption puts on land use.
It's all about enabling global consumerism, including the food industry. Here are 10 ways technology is revolutionizing plant-based food. Number 1. Tech companies invest. Tech companies and entrepreneurs are putting their money where your mouth goes. These moguls dominate today's economy, so it's only fair they give back and invest in our global community. 2020 is showing us the urgency for such measures. Many entrepreneurs and major corporations are specifically throwing their money behind vegan meat. A report by the Good Food Institute shows that nearly $1 billion was invested in alternative meat in the first quarter of 2020. Billionaire Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist Bill Gates has gotten on the bandwagon by investing in Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods.
The quality's going to keep getting better. The plant-based guys are not done innovating. Eventually, they claim you won't be able to tell the difference.
He then called up his buddies Jeff Bezos, Amazon founder and owner of the Washington Post, and Richard Branson, founder of the Virgin Group, so they could go splitsies on a $90 million investment for the startup Motif Foodworks, a branch of the tech firm Ginkgo Bioworks. Number 2. Manufacturing of veggie meat. Veggie burgers have been on the shelves since before many of you were born, but now there's a real push to create plant-based meat products that replicate their animal-based counterparts. So traditional meat companies are increasingly developing their own plant-based products to meet, pun intended, their own sustainability goals, and because, hello, money talks. The global COVID-19 pandemic has further highlighted concerns with the current meat industry, with the spread of disease in wet markets and meat packing plants. Purdue, Tyson, Hormel, Nestle, and Smithfield have all stocked popular supermarket shelves with a variety of meat alternatives, from meatballs to sausages. A bonus, by making these products mainstream, costs are going down. Number 3. Plant milk science. In the US, plant milk sales grew by 61% between 2012 and 2018. Oat milk sales surged 250% in Canada in 2019. There are similar trends in Europe and across the globe, reducing the consumption of dairy milk and need for dairy farmers while increasing the demand for plant milks. Refarmed is one of the organizations aiding former dairy farmers to manufacture and deliver vegan oat milks by offering support, equipment, and training. So how are these plant milks made? The tech industry has made for easy production of these milks. They can be harvested by using a variety of grains, nuts, and seeds. They are then turned into beverage form, where additives like vitamins, minerals, and sugars may be added. Pasteurization is also a part of this step. What's great about this process? It leaves a much smaller carbon footprint than dairy milk, and minimal water is used, especially with oat and soy milks. Number 4. Virtual reality. When people can walk a mile in a calf's hoof, they can empathize with farm animals and start to make conscious changes in their diet. Virtual reality is providing such an experience. A project called iCalf, an offshoot of PETA's nationwide tour of iAnimal, is giving consumers a glimpse of various cow narratives by utilizing film footage and computer animation.
It was heartbreaking, honestly. We never really look at an animal's perspective. They have lives too. So seeing it from that perspective really gave me something to think about.
Number 5. Vegan protein labs. Nearly half of most popular food brands have plant-based departments as a means to combat climate change and population growth. And Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger have revolutionized the way we consume protein.
Ethan Brown created Beyond Meat, where they're using science to extract protein from plants. And the result is a killer, delicious burger that's almost identical to real meat.
What we think about is really the composition of meat. It's these amino acids, lipids, it's trace minerals, trace amount of vitamins, and it's predominantly water. A lot of cuts of meat are 67% water, as you know, as a chef. So why don't we think about building meat differently?
In an episode of Roy Choi's Broken Bread, he visits Beyond Meat's test kitchen, and based on his reaction, he doesn't appear to have any beef with their juicy, sizzling burgers.
I feel like I eat one of these, I go on American Ninja Warrior.
The burger uses 99% less water.
99% less water. Less water than another patty that would be all meat.
Yeah.
You're factoring in all the stuff that it takes to make that burger.
Similar processes are also happening with egg and cheese products.
Tastes and feels like real egg, definitely.
I eat eggs every day. I didn't even notice.
Number 6. Artificial intelligence. When ruminating about artificial intelligence, flashes of Joaquin Phoenix, Haley Joel Osment, Will Smith, and distrustful robots probably come to mind. The reality, AI is improving the plant-based food industry. The company Brightseed uses its technology to catalog and identify unused nutrient sources in plants.
But at Brightseed, we know one way to find better answers faster is advanced computation, and that's why we built Forager. The other component is we teach Forager decades worth of high-level biomedical research to take that information on plants and map it to the world of human biological systems and make those connections that we can't see.
Dano North America is looking to use Brightseed's invention to improve its vegan dairy products. AI is also used in farming to reduce negative environmental impacts in the following ways: weather forecasting so farmers can increase yields and profits without risking crops, monitoring soil and crop health for deficiencies, decreasing and eliminating the need for pesticides, and by utilizing agricultural bots to combat labor challenges and to protect their crops from weeds. Number 7. The manufacturing of mushrooms. Mushrooms, specifically mycelium, are magical in all sorts of ways because they are versatile and can be used as packaging, protein, and vitamins. IKEA uses mycocomposite, a packaging material that can grow in a week and decompose in 30 days instead of styrofoam. The product is made by New York-based company Decoded.
In a world that produces more and more waste by the day, there is an environmental and economic need for a realistic solution. By using a system that is based on nature, Decoded's mushroom materials can compete on cost with petroleum-based products.
Chefs Derek and Chad Sarno are working with the UK supermarket Tesco to convert animal agriculture facilities into mushroom grow houses.
One of my favorite things that I'm so obsessed with, and you guessed it, it's mushrooms.
They chose mushrooms because of their taste, texture, low water needs, and easy conversion into meat products.
Tons of flavor in these, and it's a great meat substitute. Instead of reaching for that other plant-based protein, go for some mushrooms. Portobello's super easy to find. One of my favorites. Hope you enjoy it.
Number 8. Alternative farming methods. From substantial population growth to food deserts, the world is in need of sustenance that's not taxing the system. There are many methods of hydroponic farming, but the gist is that no soil is used when growing plants and produce. The National Park Service reported that hydroponics can use up to 10% less water than field crop watering. Vertical farming is another modality that is handy in cities and arid climates. It involves the growing of vegetables in stacked layers in a controlled environment, requiring a lot less land. In Abu Dhabi, where water is scarce and temperatures high, the government is investing $100 million towards indoor farming.
An open field or conventional farm, your water is used once and then that's it, it's gone. You cannot trace it back or reuse it. Over here we use 90% less water because you've given the plants the exact perfect environment, so they take whatever they need from the water and the nutrients, and then we return it and we reuse it all. So that's a big advantage of using vertical farming or indoor farming.
Number 9. Vegan food apps. Technology is revolutionizing how easy it is to live a plant-based lifestyle, providing access to foods and resources that weren't available not long ago. Need some vegspiration to get you through the day and keep you from reaching for that beef burger? Then check out Vegimoji. Need a vegan pot pie recipe that will fool your persnickety Aunt Betty? Then use forks over knives. Need a killer vegan restaurant recommendation for your cousin's birthday in a foreign city? Then click open Happy Cow. So, go ahead and click on those apps. Just make sure when you're done to put those phones down and enjoy the company you are with over a great meal. Number 10. Mobile smart kitchens. Want to eliminate waste and carbon emissions while shortening delivery times when ordering food? Of course you do. We know traditional agriculture accounts for a significant portion of greenhouse emissions, but transportation is responsible for 14% of carbon emissions. Enter mobile smart kitchens and companies like Zoom. Zoom wants farm-to-table access for everyone on a large scale. How? By providing hardware, software, and packaging solutions for brands and restaurants. Their forward mobile kitchens come pre-built with smart appliances and proprietary AI designed to help restaurants optimize their operations.
Giving customers an opportunity to even order a pie for delivery from one of the mobile kitchens
we can see all of the information about a customer's order and order history when they place it.
It also requires less startup capital for smaller establishments and reduces food quality deterioration. So what do you think? Which tech innovation are you most excited about?
Feeling hungry? Would you eat a steak grown in a laboratory? Would you take a bite of a cheeseburger made by a scientist? Technology startups and scientists are placing big bets on lab-grown meats. Currently, livestock is responsible for around 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. We could see this number rise in the coming decades. According to the World Economic Forum, the world population is expected to be close to 10 billion by 2050. That is a lot of mouths to feed. This population boom and rising incomes will cause demand for meat products to rise by as much as 88%. To feed the world's growing demand for meat, we already use around 27% of the world's arable land to raise livestock. We need to find a more sustainable way of satiating this rising demand. One path to the future of sustainable eating could start with lab-grown meats. Not to be confused with plant-based meat alternatives, lab-grown meats are cultured in the lab using cells which were originally derived from live animals. In theory, this cultured meat would use fewer of the planet's resources, and no animals need to be slaughtered in the process. Cultured meat might become a regular part of our diets in the coming years, making its way onto the dinner table and appearing in some of our favorite restaurants. Nonetheless, the prospect of this Meat 2.0 raises a lot of complex social, ethical, and technical questions. And, simply put, some people find the idea of eating meat from a lab weird. So what is lab-grown meat, and how is it made? First, a technician takes cells from a live animal. These cells are grown up in a lab to permanently establish a culture called a cell line. Once a good cell line has been established, a sample is introduced into a bioreactor. This is essentially a culture medium which contains all the materials the cells need to grow. The cells in the bioreactor grow and multiply exponentially and are then harvested. Once harvested, the meat cells can be formed into any number of unstructured items, from patties to sausages. In the future, it may be possible to use technologies such as 3D printing and edible scaffolds to create particular cuts of meat, like chicken legs and T-bone steak. However, this is likely to be much more difficult than producing ground meat. The technology's first public proof of concept appeared in 2013 in the Netherlands. Partially funded by Google co-founder Sergey Brin, Dr. Mark Post and his researchers at the University of Maastricht spent a little over $300,000 creating the world's first cultured meat hamburger. It was described as like an animal protein cake. The burger was even taste tested live on television and got positive reviews in general. However, the lab-grown burger lacked one central element: fat. In the meat that we eat every day, there are different types of muscles, connective tissues, lipids, bones, and fat that give flavor and texture to the food. To this day, one of the biggest challenges with lab-grown meat is giving them the flavors and textures that you might expect from biting into a steak or burger. However, this has not stopped entrepreneurs and scientists from trying. Today, startup companies are working to bring lab-grown beef, chicken, and even fish to dinner tables around the world. Aside from the regulatory hurdles, these startups need to find a way to scale up cultured meat while reducing costs. Moreover, there are other technological challenges. These include developing better cell lines and cheaper culture media, reducing the time it takes for the cells to grow, and scaling up what are now small-scale operations. They will also need to find an alternative to the use of fetal bovine serum, which is derived from cow fetuses and is added to culture media. The use of the serum is a major barrier for an industry that is trying to take animals out of the equation. The cultured meat also needs to taste good or be close enough to more traditional dishes that the public won't mind that it comes from a lab. Until cell-based meat makes the leap from the lab to your dinner table, there are some delicious plant-based meat options you can consider that are gaining traction. Companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods offer customers meat-free options made from water, soy protein, coconut, sunflower oil, and natural flavorings. Some argue that the current appeal and adoption of plant-based meats by major restaurants could be a precursor to the coming age of cultured meat dishes.
The first thing that is wrong with Beyond Meat is that it is not healthy, and it actually contains several harmful ingredients.
Silent breed
The ingredients
is
include
people!
water, pea protein, expeller pressed canola oil, refined coconut oil, rice protein, natural flavor, cocoa butter, mung bean protein, methicellulose, potato starch, apple extract, pomegranate extract, salt, potassium chloride, vinegar, lemon juice concentrate, sunflower lecithin, and beetroot juice extract for color. For anyone who's counting, that is 20 ingredients. And there are a few red flags that jump out at me immediately. Let's start at the top of the list with pea protein. The Beyond Meat burger markets itself by saying there are 20 grams of protein in every patty. First off, pea protein is not a complete protein source. This means it does not contain all essential amino acids, which all animal protein does. And I assume this is why these burgers also contain mung bean protein and rice protein to fill in the gaps. Now, before we hit on pea protein too much, it is actually one of the most easily digestible plant sources of protein, on paper at least. The Protein Digestibility Corrected Amino Acid Score, or PDCAAS, is a method of evaluating the quality of a protein based on humans' ability to digest it. 1 is the highest score, and this is where you'll find eggs, milk, whey protein, and even soy. But soy has its own set of issues that we're not going to get into today. Chicken has a score of 0.95, beef has a score of 0.92, and pea protein concentrate is 0.89, which, I mean, yeah, that's pretty good, again, on paper. But even though the PDCAAS score accounts for digestibility, it does not account for amino acids that are lost in the ileum, which is a section of your colon. And this matters because this is where most anti-nutrient absorption takes place. Peas are high in anti-nutrients such as lectins and phytates. So are we really getting the amino acids that are in pea protein? It's hard to know. But even beyond protein, where is the nutrition? Heme iron, B12, selenium, zinc, CLA. These are all in beef, but not in Beyond Meat. My other concern with pea protein is the processing it has to go through. Hexane is often used to separate the protein in plants from the oil and fiber. And what is hexane, you might be asking? And why does it matter? I like how this plant-based website, vegfrequentlyaskedquestions.com, puts it. In a nutshell, hexane is a solvent used in the extraction process to isolate the protein. However, not all of the hexane can be removed. Hexane is a chemical neurotoxin, that's a fact. The debate is around how much of it does there need to be to cause harm. Short answer, we don't know yet. Based on current safety limits, protein powders should be pretty safe. But if you want to be cautious and avoid it, that's completely understandable. Hexane is a chemical neurotoxin. It is a byproduct of petroleum. The EPA has this to say about the side effects of hexane. Inhalation exposure of humans to high levels of hexane causes mild central nervous system effects, including dizziness, giddiness, slight nausea, and headache. Chronic exposure to hexane in the air is associated with polyneuropathy in humans, with numbness in the extremities, muscular weakness, blurred vision, headaches, and fatigue observed. Moving along, the next red flag ingredient is canola oil. Now, if you've watched my video on vegetable oil, I'll link it above, you will already know how I feel about canola oil, which is considered a vegetable oil. But basically, the type of oil that canola oil is very delicate. It oxidizes very easily when exposed to heat, light, and oxygen. Consuming oxidized oils leads to oxidative stress in the body. This plays a major part in the development of chronic and degenerative illness such as cancer, autoimmune disorders, aging, cataract, arthritis, and cardiovascular and neurodegenerative diseases. Yes, this canola oil says that it's expeller pressed, which would mean it wouldn't be exposed to much heat during processing, but I am 99.9% sure that this burger is going to be exposed to some heat before cooking. Nobody's eating this raw. On top of that, heating canola oil also leads to trans fat being created. In one study, the trans fat content in canola oil was between 0.56% and 4.2% of the total fat. And then let's talk about natural flavors. This is such a vague term. I have no idea how this is allowed to be on nutrition labels. When we hear the word natural, we assume that it's actually natural and not chemically created. However, since the FDA hasn't officially defined natural, it can be used to describe almost any type of food. Here's a description of what natural flavor really means. Natural flavors are complex mixtures created by specially trained food chemists known as flavorists. In addition to their original flavor source, these mixtures can contain more than 100 different chemicals, including preservatives, solvents, and other substances. These are defined as incidental additives. However, food manufacturers aren't required to disclose whether these additives come from natural or synthetic sources. As long as the original flavoring source comes from a plant or animal material, it is classified as a natural flavor. So what exactly is the natural flavor in Beyond Beef? It is anybody's guess. The next thing that I think is wrong with Beyond Meat burgers is that they are highly processed. This sort of ties in with my first point, but let's start off by taking a look at what the process actually is to extract protein from peas. It's a pretty extensive process. But even zooming way out, look at how many ingredients there are. All of these components need to come from different places, be processed differently, and then they all come together to be processed to create this burger. There's an Instagram infographic, I think Biohacking Chick created it, where she shows where each ingredient came from in the world to create the Beyond Meat burger. I can't find it right now. If I can, I'll put it up on the screen. But I mean, yeah, that really just puts it into perspective. There's a really good article on medium.com called Is Food Tech the Future of Food? I'll link to it down below if you want to check it out afterwards. Basically, it talks about how we're innovating and creating all these new processes and foods, but are they even safe to consume, let alone sustainable? Any changes to genes can have unintended impacts on an organism, species, or ecosystem. That's why safety studies are so important. While there are suggested assessments and regulations being proposed for the USDA, they are riddled with loopholes that would allow many gene-edited foods to slip through the cracks. The World Health Organization states that it is not possible to make blanket safety statements about GMOs. They must be decided on a case-by-case basis. Without such studies, we are operating largely in the dark in making major decisions about our food system. Companies introducing these new GMOs to the market are essentially self-regulated and are asking consumers to blindly trust them. We are the first population eating these types of food, if you can even call it that, and we have no idea what the ramifications will be.
After a tough morning, you crave satisfying, mouth-watering plants.
Plants?
Plants.
Yeah.
Try Tim Hortons new 100% plant-based Beyond Meat breakfast sausage.
You're welcome.
Billboards everywhere, TV ads on all the time. So I was actually a bit surprised when they announced in September they were pulling it from all of their stores except for in Ontario and BC. And then what happened next? In January, they pulled it from Ontario and BC as well. I think this just goes to show that the product isn't what the market wants. Yes, when we're online, plant-based advocates are everywhere and they're loud. But does that actually translate to the real world?
Down almost 7% today after the Center for Consumer Freedom sounded the alarm on harmful chemicals used in processing things like pea protein, a main ingredient in the Beyond Meat burger, last night on our show.
It's not just peas that are ground up into the product. They go through a very heavy manufacturing process. There are other companies, usually ones that use soybeans, that through this process, it's called extrusion. In order to separate the protein from the fat, they'll run it through a solvent called hexane. Now, hexane is recognized by the federal government as a neurotoxin. It's thought to have impacts on reproductive health.
Okay guys, so as you've probably already read the headline, Pepsi's Bizarro World is boycotted over embryonic cells linked to low-cal soda. And this article comes from CBSNews.com, a mainstream outlet, not a basement-dwelling YouTuber like myself, and possibly at a time before we started hearing the term fake news circulating in social media circles and modern day society. If ever there was a time that was without fake news, I'd be truly surprised. But a bizarre controversy is unfolding over an impending low-calorie soda from Pepsi, which the company is creating with the help of a biotech company named Cenomix. Numerous anti-abortion groups have started to boycott Pepsi products because they say Cenomix is using and develops new ingredients intended to enhance sweetness and other flavors, is doing so using human embryonic kidney cells that were originally taken from an aborted baby, allegedly. I'm not saying that is, I'm just repeating an article that was on a mainstream outlet over 10 years ago for entertainment, information and educational purposes. I'm by no means an expert, I am just a dude in a basement, no longer actually, with a camera and a microphone bringing shit video productions for the enjoyment and entertainment and educational purposes of a handful of regular offenders who tune in to ship video productions. And again, I will say in all of my presentations, make of this what you will. I'm not telling you either way it's legitimate or debunked. I'm just providing you information, thoughts and opinions so you can formulate your own thoughts and opinions and maybe have a little bit of insight or an inkling to do some deeper research of your own, although I doubt it is likely that many of you will do that. And that's why you come and watch me. I do the hard work for you so you don't have to. But this accusation presents a twofold problem for Pepsi. The first, most obvious one is that a beverage giant is now an ardent anti-abortionists breathing down its neck. And the secondly, possibly more troubling issue is that some of Pepsi's attempts to create groundbreaking and healthier products are now being associated with fetal kidney cells. Is this claim true? Question mark. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not, but we will make of it what we will, as I've already said. But neither Pepsi or Cenomix has returned the calls to CBS News back in 2011, again, when this article was written. If or not they've done so since then, who knows? So we don't know the company's side of the story, but a pursuit of their patents suggests that it may well be. All but 7 of the company's 77 patents refer to the use of HEK293, which is human embryonic kidney cells, which researchers have used for decades as a biological workhorses For the biogeeks amongst you, if there are any, these cells offer a reliable way to produce new proteins via genetic engineering. That's great to know. Genetic engineering is providing us new proteins with human embryonic kidney cells. Is this the modern day real life equivalent of Soylent Green? That's up to you to decide. But the company appears to be engineering HEK cells to function like the taste receptor cells we have in our mouth. This way, Seminex can test millions of substances to see if they work as different types of taste enhancers without subjecting them to human volunteers to endless tape testing. Again, that is a lie. And it's not a lie if you believe it. But to non-scientists, this may sound a little bit strange, but the reality is that HEK293 cells are widely used in pharmaceutical research, helping scientists to create vaccines, as well as drugs like those for rheumatoid arthritis. And the difference here is that Seminex work for Pepsi is one of the first times the cells have potentially, in brackets, been used to create a food or beverage. And it is important to note that no part of a human kidney cells are ever a part of Seminex's taste enhancers or any finished food products. Again, not a lie if you believe it. But when bioscience meets the mass market, Debbie Vinridge, who runs an anti-abortion group, if I'm reading that right, the Children of God for Life, that doesn't matter. It is the you factor. It strikes a really strong reaction in people, she said in an interview, and she points to the fact that one of Seminex's patents, not one for a product Pepsi would be using, it goes on to add in brackets, refers to the way company scientists used mifepristone, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or incorrectly, forgive me if I am. But they used this substance of a word that I can't read in the unstable, to get unstable HEK cells to respond. And the unpronounceable word happens to be more commonly known as RU486, the abortion pill. Things are certainly lining up and not looking too good on the abortion front for Seminex. But Vintage, who has been campaigning against the use of embryonic cells for years, unearthed the information about Seminex and HEK293 by combing through the company's patents. Even though HEK293 cells trace their origin to a single kidney, fetal kidney back in the 70s, everything since has come from cultured cell lines. But the use is considered unethical because it indirectly creates a market for aborted fetuses and encourages scientists to hunt for new embryonic cell lines. And she argues that Seminex could use other non-fetus based cell lines such as those from animals. However, Pepsi is not alone, and it's hardly the only company working with Seminex. Kraft, Nestle, Solal, and Fronic, if I'm reading that correctly, again, forgive me if I'm not, have partnerships with this company that uses HEK293 as food additives, colorings, sweeteners, and taste enhancers. And the supporters of the anti-abortionists have sent letters to those companies as well as Seminex, and says that Nestle is selling products with its flavor ingredients, though it doesn't specify which products are using HEK293 as flavoring, if indeed it is using HEK293 as flavoring at all. But Pepsi, though, remains the biggest and the most obvious target of these companies using these embryonic kidney cells in their food and beverage products. And a New Yorker article last month, which would have been May 2011, on the company revealed that a new 60% less sugar soda could be out within 6 months. But David Cohen and Raymond James, who are stockbrokers who have been following Seminex for several years, says he doesn't expect a product until 2013. And that, the article finishes up by saying, gives Pepsi plenty of time to craft its side of the story should it decide to tell sell it. Now, this story has been debunked by fact checkers such as Snopes, and again, you should make of that what you will, and maybe fact check the fact checkers, because often is the case, whoever pays the piper calls the tune, and whoever's paying Snopes to fact check facts, they certainly will be drawing and paying lots of money to make sure that the facts that are checked fall in accordance to those who are paying Snopes to check their facts, if that makes any sense at all. But we are going to look at another interesting article before we do wrap up Soylent Green Decoded and return live to the studio for feedback, chat, discussion, anything you want to say, and maybe even a few shenanigans and banter before the dancing girl sees us out this evening. So stay tuned, guys. We are almost done with Soylent Green Decoded, but there are just a couple of things to look at before we are. We're quickly going to scan the surface of this article from back in October of 2020, quite recently, and in fact during the COVIDian times. Most of the stuff we have seen at this evening's presentation was pre-COVIDian era. But the article reads, Cenomix HEK293, do you know what is in your food? And there is a picture of a cute little baby with a barcode, not a barcode, the nutritional value label stuck to his forehead. And in the background, some of the products that are rumored or alleged to use HEK293 as either taste enhancers or food additives or coloring. We're not going to read all of this article. You can kind of quickly scan for yourself about it being a biotechnology company that works on the development of additives to improve the particular flavors and odors of food, and it claims to have successfully reverse engineered the receptors in humans that respond to taste and aroma, and they are profiting from doing this. But it's HEK293. What food is it in is what is of interest here, and we did just hear that mentioned that Kraft was one of the other companies that is associated with it, and you may or may not have noticed the intro at the beginning of this presentation when I was speaking. In the background there's lots of food products. Some of those food products were in fact products that are alleged to have HEK293, as well as some of the companies that are using those products as part of their menus for you, such as Burger King. As I said, I'm really not going to read this all for you. If you so choose to, you can pause and stop the screen and read it for yourself. I did just want to point out one more article concerning Cenomix and HEK293. Is this the real life Soylent Green ingredient? One can only wonder. But Coffee Mate, Nestle's Coffee Mate Pumpkin Spice is one of the products, and can't deny or ignore how popular pumpkin spiced lattes have come in the last recent years. Maybe around this time that Cenomix reversed engineered cells and taste receptors in order to profit by creating better tasting artificially produced foods using natural ingredients such as human embryonic kidney cells. But there you go, guys. There's a lot of stuff there for you to read on your own. I'm not going to bore you at this late stage in the game by reading it all, because I'm pretty sure it would send you to sleep. You can look into it for yourself. Just put HEK293 in a search engine of your choice and scan through the results. And you'll also find some more contemporary articles linking HEK293 to certain vaccines being used, like Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. But that's for the medical experts to tell you, not me. I'm just a YouTuber that makes videos for entertainment, educational and informative purposes, and make of it what you will. I just found some information that was interested in and decided to put it together in a feature presentation that maybe my 6 or 7 viewers that tune in regularly will also find interesting, although there's 1 or 2 of them I doubt seriously it was. But nonetheless, let's continue and finally finish this off with one last article before. Now, this is an article I came across on Reddit, and as always, and I will repeat myself by telling you to make of it what you will. And I come across this article in particular, kind of sort of link HEK293, which we just heard about being used in PepsiCo products as sweeteners or taste enhancers. But I was looking into links between HEK293 and in particular plant-based products to see if or not it was the modern day real life equivalent of Soylent Green from the movies, in which they used the euthanized bodies of disgruntled, disillusioned citizens of New York City in an overpopulated, climate ravaged society. They check out at the euthanasia clinic, and out of the back door they're loaded up onto trucks and off they trot to the Soylent Green factory, where they are processed in food. And this Reddit article reads, a Planned Parenthood located very close to Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, and all manner of deep state links. So make of it what you will. We can't exactly see the map in full screen or in landscape as I'm using at the moment. But you can see there at the top is an Impossible Food Inc. factory. And if you follow the route down, which isn't very, very far or very tricky to navigate, it takes 2.1 miles and takes 9 minutes. There is a Planned Parenthood clinic in Redwood City Heath, and that just is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Planned Parenthood clinics being extremely close to Impossible or Beyond Meat factories. There are a couple of videos which are linked in this Reddit article. Hopefully you've got all the information you need to follow this for yourself if you want to look more into it and watch these videos. I'm not going to be breastfeeding you by putting descriptions, link in the descriptions. Rather, you should have everything you need to follow your own research from what you're seeing on the screen. But the first one, however, is unavailable for whatever purposes, I don't know. And the second one is a 13-minute long video talking about sort of the links between HEK293 and some of these plant-based products being manufactured at the Impossible and Beyond Meat factories. But here is an album of the Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat locations as compared to the closest Planned Parenthood locations, ranging from 5.4 miles by car to 213 feet. Could there be a tunnel connecting the two? One can only wonder and conspire if or not there is a tunnel that links the two, but certainly 5.4 miles isn't a long distance to navigate, and you'd almost essentially ensure that your product arrived at the Beyond Meat factory in almost perfect condition, fresh from the harvest, so to speak. But let's have a little look at this first one here. As I said, this is very interesting. I think that is the one that we just saw before we clicked on the link as the header. It is very difficult to me to see, but there is a Planned Parenthood clinic there. And across the road is an Impossible Food clinic as another example. So that's two that we've saw. And here is another one. If we just zoom it out for you again, Imager is the word I couldn't read. Excuse me, guys. My eyes are in need of optical assistance, I'm sure. But 4 miles, 4 minutes, 1.2 miles away by car will take you to, from that Planned Parenthood Columbia Heath Center to the Impossible Meat Factory, which is situated there, not too far at all. And again, there is another one, Beyond Meat Inc., and a couple of winding roads, and you find yourself at the Planned Parenthood at South Bay Health Center. So that is just one example. So that was one example. I did have a little bit of a glitch with my screen recorder. I had to stop and restart recording. But we are going to look at another location on the Google map, this time in Columbia, Montana. Maiden, this affects you. You're a resident of Montana. And there you can see 4 minutes from the Planned Parenthood to Beyond Meat factory. Can we zoom in? Not so much. There's more barriers or banners than a map being shown on the screen, but you can see there that that is 5 minutes away, or 4 minutes, 1.2 miles, the fastest route now due to conditions. So there was again a Planned Parenthood clinic very close to a Beyond Meat factory. Let's go back to El Segundo in California. Here is another map link. And again, I don't know why we're getting so many banners rather than a map, but you can see it takes 15 minutes, 5.4 miles. And I'm guessing that is the most furthest distance between a Planned Parenthood clinic and an Impossible Meat, or in this case, a Beyond Meat factory. And there's some Impossible Foods here at the Google Maps, Redwood in California, Redwood City in California, and that is 10 minutes, 3.1 miles from Impossible Foods to Planned Parenthood. So as you can see, guys, there's sort of a bit of a pattern going on here, that Planned Parenthoods are very, very close to these Impossible or Beyond Meat factories. And this one in East Oakland, California is nuts, the writer of the article says, because it literally is 1 minute away, less than 0.1 of a mile, and you can just walk there if really you needed to be. Are we able to get the street view up? Don't allow, no, you're not using my own location, but there is a way that you can zoom in on it, I think, although I'm having very difficulties doing it. And you know, you can do that like round and round 360 view for yourself, which I did do just a second ago before I started re-recording. Don't know why I can't do it again, but let's come out of there if we can. And see, here it is, the street view. That's probably why I clicked on the right thing. So there you can kind of see in the distance would be the Beyond Meat factory at 550 85th Avenue. And if we do a 360 there, you can see there's the street, and right across the road, I believe, there it is. You can see for yourself a Planned Parenthood factory. So I did manage to find what I was looking for, where the streets have names. The 85th Avenue, location 550, less than a minute walk from a Beyond Meat factory and a Planned Parenthood clinic. So I'm not exactly saying this is the smoking gun that reveals Soylent Green is real and Beyond Meat, Impossible Meat is in fact people, or in this case human embryonic clinics that are human embryonic kidneys that have been harvested from the abortion clinics that literally are just a stone's throw away in some cases to a very short 20-minute car drive away. Certainly a lot of coincidences in the locations, proximities to one another. I think you would have to agree with me, but as I said, it is hardly the smoking gun that proves everything, but it certainly does provide a lot of information, food for thought, and supporting information for the theory that there could be a very strong possibility that HEK293, human embryonic kidney cells, is being used as a food additive, taste enhancer, or sweetener in Beyond or Impossible Meat products. Wouldn't be too much of a stretch of the imagination to put it past the Food and Drugs Administration Agency to do such a nefarious, tyrannical thing, and waste not, want not, and this is exactly how the Food and Drug Administration worked hand in hand in Soylent Green by harvesting the bodies of the euthanized citizens of New York City, set in the fictional 2022, and for quite some time now, these Beyond Meat factories, Impossible Meat factories, could well have been harvesting the aborted fetuses from the Planned Parenthood clinics that are not situated that far away. That being said, guys, let's wrap Soylent Green Decoded up, and if you have any thoughts or opinions, please leave them in the comments below. And all that remains to say is thanks for tuning in to this shit video production brought to you on Reality Decoded. This was Soylent Green Decoded. We'll see you next time. Till then, be excellent to one another.
Up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. Listen, everywhere you look in this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows to be found as well.
Can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me? Oh, wait, I need to put my camera back on. There we go. Oh, and I flipped somehow. There we are, we're back. Haven't used this application for quite some time and not as familiar as I once was. But guys, you have been a spectacular audience for once. Lots of great comments, lots of interaction. All I could have ever asked for, and possibly a little bit more from a stream, you know, how I sort of hope them to be received by you, the viewers. That would have been an exact prime example of what I have always hoped for. So thanks for making this a more than enjoyable experience for me personally. Certainly over the last sort of few weeks and in fact months of trying to really kickstart this channel, ups and downs, roller coasters of people not even tuning in at all, to sort of occasionally the dizzy heights of having over 30 people watching. But that was a piece of work, and I did sort of mention before that I did put an awful lot of time in, mainly because when I started it, sort of halfway into the sort of putting it together, I left Toronto and came here to Mexico, and then had all my shit to sort out while I was here when I first arrived. So it took me about sort of 8 or 9 months before I sort of picked up where I left off in Toronto on that production and put the rest of it together. But that end part for me was the sort of telling, and as I sort of did tease earlier on in that chat, that I sort of had a Soylent Green ending of my own for my Soylent Green Decode stream, which showed that there are an awful lot of Planned Parenthood clinics that are literally in some cases just a stone's throw away from the possible meat factory, but none of those examples we saw were more than a 20-minute drive. I don't even think they were that long. I think the most, the longest distance was a 15-minute drive and 5 miles away. Can't tell you that it's a smoking gun, but to me that is far too coincidental to be accidental. And sort of, as I mentioned, logistically speaking, if you sort of have a fresh harvest of aborted fetuses, then put them in a cool box, chuck them in the back of a pickup, and 5 minutes later you can hand them over at the Impossible Meat Factory. And before you can order it, they can be churning out their very own Soylent Green in the form of plant-based burgers or Impossible sausages or whatever other abominations they are making in those factories using plants, algae, possibly embryos, to create a substance that looks, tastes and smells just like meat. If that in itself isn't disturbing enough that they're creating this food, the additional fact that there might be a chance they are using HEK293, which is human embryonic kidney cells. That is how it's labeled. It has been used as a food coloring. You can go and look this stuff up yourself. It has also been linked to a certain remedy for a certain illness that 99.6% of us had the chance of surviving. You know what I am talking about, but they believe and have seen a few articles that suggest HEK293 would be in there. Now, the whole adrenochrome sort of narrative, somebody, I think it was Kelly Keyboat, if she's still watching, you know, she made some great points from a vegetarian perspective, and this is what we like to see here. Alternative opinions working sort of together and sort of talking together without having to come to blows or arguing. But, you know, she offered the point that do we crave meat because of the adrenochrome in it, in those I've seen slaughterhouse videos. I'm not going to lie. When I was a teenager and just left school, one of the jobs that was suggested to me by the sort of occupational sort of, so you know, when you leave school, you go and have a meeting. What do you want to do with yourself, son? You know, I'd like to be a footballer or maybe an astronaut. Yeah, that's not going to happen. How about a job in a factory? But one of the places they sent me for an interview was the local slaughterhouse in Swindon. My hometown is named from the Latin swine downs because it was a place where once upon a time wild pigs roamed free and plentiful, and it was a site that was used by the Romans and the Normans as a garrison site because of the amount of pigs that were on hand to feed their armies and the soldiers. And Wiltshire in particular, the home county that my hometown Swindon is in, is very famous for pork products, and the slaughterhouse literally was at the end of my street when I was growing up in the boy. When I sort of get up and walk to school, you'd see the trucks of pigs leading up the road and heading off to slaughter. And on the right day, when the wind was right, you would hear the screams of the pigs. You know, occasionally there'd be some strange smells that would also emit from a chimney there. But I did go to have an interview there, and they did give me a white coat and a pair of white Wellingtons and a little white thing to put on my hat and walk me around as part of the interview. And I think that was sort of to see if you had the stomach for it or not. So I did get to a little bit of a glimpse of to what that would be. But I was also offered a job at a male clothing shop, fashionable clothing shop, and sort of a 16-year-old selling fashionable clothes was far more appealing to me than putting a metal bolt in the head of a pig every 5 minutes. But you know, we can't all go out and hunt our meat. We can't all go and butcher the meat that we hunt in our homes. I believe in the UK there are actually laws that prohibit sort of civilians just going up and grabbing, you know, a cow and bringing it home and sort of butchering it in its backyard. You know, there's all the blood and organs and whatnot to get rid of it. And you know, the slaughterhouse is somewhat of a sterile environment that does require a little bit of, you know, overseeing to maintain the integrity, although it won't really be that overseen, you know what I'm saying? But it is a sort of controlled environment, and you know, we can't all be out hunting our animals. And, you know, another argument, you know, this is something that sort of vegans and vegetarians have used as an argument. Well, it's not like you go out and hunt and kill your own meat. Well, it's not like you go out and grow and plant your own vegetables. You know, most of you go to the kale smoothie bar or go to the organic veggie shop. You know, and depending what part of the world you're in, you know, you can't grow vegetables all year round. They've got to come from somewhere. And if, you know, you're living in somewhere like Canada or Pennsylvania or the northeast of North America, where you get some very what word am I trying to say? Some very harsh and brutal, there you go, brutal winters to contend with, where you can't grow shit for months of the year, you know. How would you be a vegetarian then if you've got to go to the store and buy your produce that has been somewhere else? So, you know, the argument doesn't really weigh up in that respect. You know, it's, you should hunt your food. It's okay for us not to hunt or plant or grow our own vegetables, but you can't eat meat because you don't hunt and kill it yourselves. Just like meat eaters, vegetarians go to the same stores and buy their daily produce. You know, and the other sort of horrible truth of vegetarianism and veganism, that the farmers have to kill animals in their thousands, animals like rabbits, like foxes, like hares, moles, voles, bats, birds, insects, all sorts of creatures that would eat and live off of those plants have to be killed to maintain the integrity of those crops, to ensure the yield is as plentiful as possible to make its way to the consumerism. But nobody bats an eyelids about those animals being killed. It's only the animals that actually do their death is purposeful, in the sense that that meat comes to our tables and we eat it. The creatures that killed to protect plants, that's waste. Unless, you know, they let nature take care of nature, and it sort of feeds itself in the recycling processes, you know, earth to earth, ashes to ashes and all that, but they don't. So there is no food on your plate, whether it's plant-based, well, actually in the plant-based, when it does come from a factory, yeah, there ain't no death involved there because it's all fucking chemically created. But if you're eating fruits, if you're eating vegetables, if you're eating animals, death has resulted in order to get that to your plate, whether you're actually eating flesh or not. Animals have died to maintain that produce's integrity, and that is truth. You can go and look that up. That ain't me blowing smoke up your ass or being opinionated because I eat vegan. I don't like vegans or vegetarians, and I actually don't mind vegans or vegetarians. You can eat what you want. I don't like propaganda. I don't like this being rammed down our throat. I don't like the fact that you know, they lied to us all over, and you've just watched what I put together about these substances and how it's created, what they use in connective muscle tissues, stem cells, DNA from soy plants, and we're going to inject those into GMO created stem cells, and then with that it creates a texture that's almost as close as meat, and then using colorings and additives and flavorings we can make it taste like meat. And it's going to be more expensive than eat meat, but tell me, you know, this isn't wrong. They're lying to us. This isn't healthy. It's being told, you know, and if you watch those No One Watch RD videos through the course of the week where I exposed the vegan propaganda that is being delivered via the narrative network that is Twitter, it's not delivering me social entertainment or interactions with people I follow. It's trying to socially manipulate me and the masses. Excuse me, noise pollution outside. The son of Sam dog is barking once again. It is that time of night where the neighbours have come home from work and start going out and walking their dogs. And there are a couple now currently looking at my house with dogs, and my dogs are about to go to the window and bark at their dogs. That's a little bit of live commentary for you. But Danielle, hello, welcome to you. A long time no speak, or no see. How things are good with you. But the vegan agenda, the vegan narrative, as I said, is something I've spoken about a lot of times over at TSP TV. Maybe not as much here at Reality Decoded, but you heard in that stream that they're gonna try within 15 years, and that was about 2015, 2016, some of those documentaries, so we're halfway through that 15-year period, but within 15 years they are hoping to replace all meat products with plant-based lab-grown meats. Soylent Green, folks, is gonna be an actual thing. We're gonna live in a society all more than likely in a not so distant future where things like meat, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits are a thing of the past and only reserved for those that can afford them. We've already seen a hike in the prices at the grocery stores on a lot of household normal products, not the sort of luxury items. Normal items now are sort of becoming $10 items. You can't put an awful lot in your grocery cart these days and come out with change from $100 anymore. And you know, on top of that, we were talking just yesterday or the day before over on my partner's channel. She had me as a guest as part of her stream, and we were talking about the Texas situation, that sort of agriculture has taken a big hammer in there, all the devastation. I think it was Kim who mentioned how upsetting she was hearing the story that some of the cattle up there that are livestock had burnt hooves and burnt udders, and they had to be euthanized. I'm not sure if they would be able to still purpose the euthanized cows for consumerism. I highly doubt it, but you know, it is a very disturbing vision to have, and that is a little bit of how they sort of sell these stories. You need that heartbreaking moment, just as I mentioned in the chat, the babies being thrown from incubators and left to die on the floor was the lie that kick-started the first Gulf War, although, you know, they're not going to war in Texas, but there's something not right going on with those fires there. I think all of you would be in somewhat of agreement. But the vegan agenda, as we also saw, you know, this impossible food nonsense, this industry, plant-based meat, was kick-started by Bill Gates. He has an awful lot of invested interest within that industry because he created it, and if this much money is being spent in it, if there is this much propaganda about it, there probably ain't no stopping it. It's already in place, it's already happening. Now, something I didn't add in that presentation, which sort of after I made it really wish that I had, was the fact that now in Canada, medical assistance in deaf is a thing, and only recently they extended and they made some amendments to the regulations that for people who were eligible for it. Before, it was like really people who were sort of terminally ill or had been in accidents where there's no way back. This was an option for those people, but a few years ago, post the COVIDian era, they made amendments and changed it to allow people suffering with mental health disorders to be now eligible for medical assistance in deaf, and that is an open umbrella. It doesn't matter if you're just a little bit depressed or if you have the worst PTSD, you are eligible now to go and have medical assistance in deaf. And you know, we've all been a little bit depressed, our boyfriends left us, our favourite TV series come to an end, our favourite sports team lost a big important match, and we've all been broken hearted and felt, you know, maybe we don't want to go on anymore, life's not worth living. And in that moment, you know, the option of a euthanasia, actually, we'll give you some nice drugs, play some music, put you to sleep, just like we saw in Soylent Green. That option is now available, and at the start of last year, actually it might have been 2022, funny enough, on Canadian TV. I'd already left Canada by then, but I still used to get a bit of news coming in from Canada. On the sort of news channels there, they were offering and talking and interviewing people with depression who supposedly had chosen medical assistance in deaf rather than living in poverty. You know, the thought of being on the streets and homeless and not being able to feed myself is just too much for me to bear. I'd rather just put myself out of my misery and suffering and not be a burden on society. And that was a propaganda campaign. It was very disturbing to me. I actually have a video about that on this channel, Canadian Crisis. If you want to go and check that out, you can see all the information that I put together regarding the medical assistance in deaf, and possibly should have edited that part out and included it in here as an amendment after the fact. But hindsight is a wonderful thing. But opening up to people that have medical assistance, who have mental illnesses, rather, giving them the offer and the choice to check out via euthanasia is very disturbing. And the fact that the sort of mainstream media up there in Canada is sort of selling, promoting and pushing this idea to people, rather than live in poverty, do the decent thing and check out. Don't be a burden on society. You know, have a nice day, last day on earth. And I think my partner and I recently were joking on another occasion. She had me as a guest on her stream about how we should open up the euthanasia hotel and sort of check in the last 24 hours of your life before you go to the clinic. And we're trying to make it the best day of your life possible. You can check in, but you never leave. Think about it. That is a brandable and marketable industrial idea for the future. Patent that shit now, copyright it if you want. Maybe we should all come as a conglomerate, put a few bucks in together and see if we can open our very own euthanasia hotel in the future. But let's look at what some of you folks are saying. Some of you are talking about, I love mayo sandwiches. Kim with a mayo, no, Curious Georgia with mayo sandwich. Kim loves a mayo sandwich. Trank, euthanasia is also available in old Australia. Rules are still tight. Time will loosen them. Yeah, they probably will. And you know, Canada and Australia being part of the Commonwealth, you know, if it goes on in Canada, it's only a matter of time before it happens in Australia. So that's a great comment from you there. Will loosen, and pregnancy termination up to 40 weeks is allowed. That is a little bit disturbing. I mean, let's not get into the abortion argument, because that is a very dividing argument to have. But up to sort of 40 weeks, that is, sometimes babies are born at 40 weeks prematurely. That is a formed physical, a human being. And I don't know, in that case, they'd probably give it to the corpse to the parents to bury, unlike what happens to an embryo in its very early development stage that is just like a shrimp basically, and it doesn't look so much human being to sort of squish together and process into a paste that you can then call as a food colouring. Tonette, one of my best friends, eats that stuff, drives a hybrid car, leans left in politics, and has pastel colour in her hair. We see life so differently, yet we are forever friends, and that is a good example of being excellent together in sort of understanding that people have differences of opinions, but you shouldn't let that stand in your way. As I said to you guys earlier, I am an atheist. I welcome all Christians here with open arms. If you're Hindu, if you're Muslim, if you're Sikh, Buddhist, Hare Krishna, or if you're a fellow atheist like myself, and I don't really like that term, I'm just someone who doesn't believe in the God concept. And please don't judge me for that. I don't judge you for what you believe in. But we've got to be excellent to each other, guys. We've got to be on the same page. It's at least with the agreement that the powers to be are not out for our best interests, and we need to understand some of these methods, tools, weapons they are using against us. Many of the things in life have been removed for us. The COVIDian era was the dawn for the new normals, not just the new normal that we had to deal with, living through that, standing out in line out of grocery stores, having to be 6 feet apart. That is programmatics, that is a seed planting, and in the future there's going to be another event, like, we're going to probably have to go and line up for food like we see in Soylent Green, and when we're lining up for just like the good old days of the pandemic. Do you remember, Beryl, when we had to stand in line for toilet paper for 2 hours and had to they were good old days. I remember staying at home all day and watching Netflix and Instagramming my friends. That was great times. How times have changed now, waiting in line for plant-based wafers once a week. We have to be introduced incrementally to all future agendas, so when the future agenda comes, it's not such a radical change. We don't see it happening. The frogs in the pot is another example folks have left used in the past. But guys, there has been such a lot of great comments. It's sort of hard for me to keep up with what all of you are saying, so please forgive me if I haven't read one of your good comments. I'm going to try and see if I can read out another couple of you, because I always ask for comments and it would be rude of me not to read them if I didn't. Danielle, did you watch the Netflix special about him? It was very eye-opening, makes you think. Not sure what you're talking about there, but Netflix, a little bit like Twitter, or a lot like Twitter, is sort of a propaganda delivery system, in the sense that a lot of Netflix created content is designed and created to be propaganda one way or another. And another sort of reference from Soylent Green is the oceans are drying up. Netflix is dropping a documentary or a movie that's going to look like a documentary, a piece of propaganda that looks like a documentary called Seaspiracy, about how the fishing industry has literally raped the oceans dry and caused all sorts of contamination and problems and pollutions under the waves that is contributing to climate change. The vegan agenda is also running in conjunction with climate change. So for climate change, we can just reduce the amount of animals. And this is the horrible thing, is what's going to happen to farm animals once food becomes obsolete to the masses. They ain't going to be letting them run wild, skipping and dancing like a movie in Disney, jumping over rainbows and little bluebirds coming and landing, cutely on the horn of a cow and whistling zippity-doo-dah. That shit ain't happening. there won't be no fucking cows anymore for anyone to enjoy or see except for the rich boys that have their own private reserve. And this is probably why we see the likes of Bill Gates and other elite entrepreneur billionaires buying up large patches of land in places that you can grow crops year round. There's a reason they're doing this, folks, and the reason is because you and I are not going to be entitled to food for very much longer. And even if you start prepping, stockpiling, holding on to as much as you can in the future, they won't let you hold it or keep it. They will come after it. Please don't think your fire freedom tools are going to be any effect or protection for you. They wouldn't allow Americans to have firearms if they truly were a threat to the government. That's your little fake sense of security, your security blanket to make you think you have a chance of fighting back, just like you think you have a choice at the voting ballots. It's all in their favor and it is all stacked, but they ain't going to kill you with tanks, bombs, and bullets and helicopters with Gatling guns and napalm. They're coming after you with toxins in the foods, in the medications, in the drug systems, in the air. They can use frequencies, they can use directed energy weaponry. They do not need to send the troops in. What we are seeing in America now is the systematic extermination. It is scorched earth. They're displacing and dismantling people and putting them out of their homes. They're scorching that earth in Maui, in Paradise, in Texas. Shit that went down in East Ohio, that contaminated the land. People are being displaced. They are being removed. The earth is being scorched. The ways are changing. We are not going to be given food privileges for much longer. It is going to come to the choice time where the only food available is going to be lab-based, lab-produced soylent substances, is my opinion. Don't take my opinion and make it yours. Make of it what you will. But guys, I am going to be wrapping this up shortly. How long have we been going for? 2 hours and 37 minutes. Rage Against the Machine, proud to say I tested positive for critical thinking. That is a very good thing to be tested positive for. And at the beginning I say open your minds, expand your imaginations and broaden your attention spans as far as you possibly can, and add to that a pinch of critical thinking and you've got a wonderful mix for, I don't know what the wonderful mix is for, but you know where I'm getting at, guys. It's been sort of a long day. I did put a stream or a live premiere up this morning all about the vegan agenda over on Twitter, how it's being delivered right and rampant. And again, to sort of clarify, at the moment my channel is called No One Watches RD. I changed it from Reality Decoded because literally no one was watching RD. The last stream I did as Reality Decoded had 0 viewers tuned into it. Well, actually, it did have 16 to start with it, but just after 7 o'clock, all 16 people, one after the other, sort of disappeared, and I know where you went because I followed you. But that was the moment I thought, what is the point? If no one's going to tune in, then give up the goat. But I do have an enjoyment for sort of editing and making videos and stuff like that. I also do enjoy, well, not as much as I did. I used to enjoy researching and looking into this stuff for sort of entertainment until it changed from being entertainment to survival. Excuse me, let me just get a little drink of water. And as part of the survival, the information I've acquired and accumulated over the years, I've shared with you to make of it what you will. If it aids with your survival plan, if it helps you understand how things are, all the better. If you found it entertaining enjoyment, that's great. If you tuned in just to sort of chat amongst yourselves in the chat, then that's great too. The community is part of the channel, but a channel without viewers, what is the point? You see what I'm saying, guys? But as a few of you guys did reach out after I decided to sort of retire and say, listen, don't give up, please come back, you know, we learn a lot from you. I felt a little bit compelled to do so because, you know, I am very fond of some of you regular offenders. I like you all in a way. So I did come back, but I rebranded as No One Watches RD. And funny enough, I actually think that's got a sort of better ring to it than Reality Decoded. It's sort of rolls off the tongue. It sort of has that sort of reverse psychology effect that I've actually seen in full effect this week with a few of you guys leaving comments. I watch RD, which could be sort of a catchphrase. Every channel needs a catchphrase. I watch RD. I sort of hoped and expected it might happen, but I wanted to see if it would happen organically rather than push it, and it did. So I think for the time being, I will call this channel No One Watches RD. If I do produce and upload any videos under the No One Watches RD banner, you will know they will be shorter. They will not be the regular sort of content I do tend to bring you, which was sort of more similar to what we saw now, although the Soylent Green Decode we did just see is a shorter than normal stream that I tend to put out, sometimes around 3, 4, 5, 6 hours at times. But No One Watches RD will probably be less than 30 minutes long. They are me putting the minimal to next to zero amount of effort in, because, you know, if nobody, the more effort you put on into it, the less people watch. It sort of hurts a little bit more. So all that time and trouble, no one even bothered to watch it. So if you don't put much effort into it and no one watches, it's like, oh, well, never mind. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, but there will be some sort of a message in there one way or another, as much as they will be a little bit satirical and parodical. If not anyone picked up or caught on to the satire and parody through those No One Watches RD streams, let me know in the comments. Daryl, No One RD isn't shadow banned yet. No, not that much. Danielle, No One Watches RD. Good to see you check in more often. Yeah, don't be a stranger, Danielle. I mean, you're one of the folks that do still remember me as TSP, although I don't know if anybody here does. James Malcolm, I think maybe you might have been around in the TSP TV days. Clarify that for me and forgive me if I'm mistaken there. But as I was saying, guys, I think I am gonna wrap it up right now, leave you wanting a little bit more, but if you do want the sort of more original, regular type of reality decoded type content, then that will be coming you in the shape of Midnight in the Jungle, which we just watched this evening, which of course is my little tribute to Art Bell and late night talk radio show Midnight in the Desert, and of course Coast to Coast, and it was just an excuse alone to use the theme for Midnight Express as an intro. So if or not you've been watching north, south, west or east of the Rockies this evening, or in another time zone, I thank you all for joining me this evening. You've really made my day in more ways than you know. But the sort of more regular reality decoded content, deep dives, lots of information, longer than average streams. If that is your boat, you will get that. Maybe not weekly, because it does, as I said, take a little bit of time and effort putting presentations together, having to sort of search for information, find content, and do all the editing, do all the uploading and all of that stuff. It can be a little bit time consuming. The weather is getting a lot nicer today. Today we had our first 100 degree plus day, 102 degrees at the hottest point of the day. However, lots and lots of clouds. I think we might get a little storm later this evening here in the northeast part of the Yucatan Peninsula. So watch this space. Not sure when I will be back with you with more, but probably I will try to bring you something for Monday in the shape and form of No One Watches RD, and I'm going to sort of use this channel as a little bit of a dual channel. See which one works the best, see what gets the more options. But we had over 20 folks watching tonight, so that is a huge improvement on the 0 that I recently had. And let's hope we can attract a few more regular offenders to the fold, because I think you guys who've been here tonight have enjoyed yourself throughout this experience, and hopefully you will come back for more, which is what I'm trying to do. So we are actually getting a little bit close to the 3-hour mark. So let me just see if I can read a few more comments just to drag it out. I do get a little bit OCD about my time frames. Let me go and turn the light on also. Hold on a second. Has that made any improvements? Not so much, but I can assure I don't like bright lights. Daryl Calhoun, DC, Rip Arbel, Danielle Rip Arbel, Kim B, Kim Blanchard, yes, I loved this RD, love heart, thank you, Tranquil Vortex, great stream, some emojis from Danielle, Curious Georgia, thanks RD, have a good night. Tanet is in the Rockies, that's great, I always loved it when it coming south, no, it's west of the Rockies, wasn't it? West of the Rockies and the wild card phone line. Hopefully, as I said, I will try and figure something out for guests in the future. I do stream off of my phone, I did explain. This application is actually really good for a free app. I don't even know there is a paid option for it, which probably means I'm the product if it's free. But for a free application with almost no ads at all, you can do pretty much almost anything an OBS outside broadcasting system software can do on a computer, other than really share my screen. There is an option, but it doesn't work very well, and it doesn't allow me to have guests, although we can do it via Discord or figure one way or other to sort of speak on the phone and put it next to the speaker. I have done that before in the past, but I think once we get a few more regular offenders and try and get it closer to the 30 viewer mark, that might be the time and the reward for viewership to open up the phone lines and sort of have a little bit more of an interactive experience and kind of get that more similarity to the Midnight in the Desert, when they'd sort of have a special guest on, he'd say his piece, and then once he'd done his bit, people would phone in and ask questions, and that was a radio show that I used to listen to an awful lot, especially when I moved into the United States and when I was up in Canada. In fact, when I first was in Canada, I didn't have a TV, I didn't even have a phone for a few weeks. All I had was a little transmitter radio with batteries, FM, AM, and at night I used to listen to talk radio and coast to coast. Canada or US Rockies. I went to Banff for Christmas and New Year this year. Colorado Rocky Mountain High is next. Carol was only 35 here in KS. Winds cracking about the North Burr. James Malcolm, I got a friend in Playa del Carmen. Yeah, that's just down the road from me, about 25-30 minute drive there. Jeanette is Colorado, born and raised. Let's see what else you got. Go up a little bit there. On the scrolling, I've already read the tested positive for critical thinking. Here's a good one from Tanet again. In the cartoon Futurama, they have a suicide machine available on the street corner. Desensitization, funny. Yes, they actually do. I remember that. Futurama is a sort of a Matt Groening production from The Simpsons. We all know the Simpsons' infamy for having a knack of predicting things. That is, unless, of course, the elites that carry out these agendas are having a little bit of a laugh at our expense, and they're big fans of The Simpsons. Like, hey, remember that scene in The Simpsons? Why don't we replicate that with Donald Trump? And Donald Trump's like, that would be great. Let's do it. And then people think The Simpsons predicted, because is it a prediction or is it a parody? We only sort of look at the predictive program of 9/11 after the fact, right? None of us sort of cottoned onto it prior because we didn't know it was going to happen. It was only after that we were made aware that this event had been predicted in fiction multiple times. But with the case of The Simpsons, the footage of The Simpsons exists, so it can be replicated, is what I'm saying. Is it a prediction or is it a prophecy? Or is it a parody? Rather, let that have a think about that and let me know what you believe. Al here, but soon phone call. Sorry, Al, and that is my partner Rena down there on one of our other devices. So that is it. As I say, guys, I am trying to drag it out close to the 3 hours mark, which is another 10 minutes away. I don't think I am going to be able to do that, unfortunately. So I will line up for you the all-new Dancing Girl. Actually, before I do, let me do my outro pleasantries, and then I will treat you to the all-new Dancing Girl outro for your enjoyment, so you can do all your goodbyes and chat to one another before you head on over to wherever it is you are heading over, or whatever plans you have for the weekend. But as I said before, guys, you have been a fantastic viewing audience. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you this evening, and that might be incentive enough to fuel me in to put in the next Midnight in the Jungle into production sooner than later, and hopefully we can all hang out and do this again real soon. Be sure to check out on Monday. I can't promise you, but there might be a daily drop. If or not, it turns into a daily double drop. Who knows what Monday brings, but Monday will bring whatever Monday will bring. Until then, enjoy your weekend that is ahead of you guys. If or not I catch you on other streams elsewhere, we will remain to see. But as always folks, please take care until the next time. Remember to be excellent to each other, and let's ask for the Force to be with you. And that being said, and no further ado, here is the Dancing Girl to play it out with. See you next time, folks. This is RD signing out for now.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.